All eyes on Buffalo, all eyes on the 2018 NHL Scouting Combine, live from the Harbor Center in Buffalo, New York. Welcome once again to Facebook Live and Sportsnet.ca. It's always a lot of fun. The anticipation before the draft. It's become a tent-pole day around the NHL. Have a look at the scene right now. Kids being run through their paces, whether it's long jump, whether it's jump station, whether it's VO2 max, whether it's pull-ups. All the kids being tested as they have been all week long, both physically and in some cases mentally as well, as we bring you inside the Harbor Center. Jeff Merrick alongside Sam Cosentino. Sam, nice to be joined by you once again. Haven't seen you since the MasterCard Memorial Cup. Where there was really only one prospect that we had our eyes on as far as the first round goes, and that was Noah Dobson. We'll get to him in a couple of seconds, but first of all, just want to get your wide brush thoughts on the nature of the Combine and what type of information can general managers glean from this that will help prospects, hurt prospects. Essentially what I'm getting at is, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you go back to the genesis of this whole thing was just to try and gather more information.
Yep.
For general managers and scouts to get more information. The more information you have, you're empowered by that, and then you can kind of take that stuff and move forward with it. So it's evolved, over the years. You think about E.J. McGuire, and now under the tutelage of Dan Marr, and getting the input of the 31 NHL teams to try and come up with a formula that suits all the teams best. Well, That can be a challenge because you're trying to serve so many different masters. But ultimately what we're looking at is the players come in here on Monday, and the way it's set up here in Buffalo is that the suites at the KeyBank Center are left open for each of the teams. And the teams will bring their delegates in there, anywhere from 2 to 12 people, sometimes a bit more than that. They'll sit the players down there, interview them for 15 or 20 minutes. Some will administer psychology tests. Others will simply just have a couple of guys in the room trying to shoot the breeze. So from there, you're able to gather information about a player's background that you may not already know. Some story may come unearthed that you don't know about. And those things really tell what kind of player you're getting in terms of character. Character has become so much a part of the process over the last 5 or 6 years because of the investment, because you don't have room to make a mistake in the salary cap era.
Sure.
So that becomes really, really important. That's why even from the start of the year, scouts are continuously interviewing players, and then you get here, they do it in a mass form, and then they add some layers to it. Now we get to the physical part of it. And the physical part of it has evolved as well. But what is the physical part telling us? Does a guy who can do more pull-ups, or does a guy who can jump longer, is he going to be better suited to play in the National Hockey League? Well, at this age, there's so many different levels of where a player is in terms of his physical maturity that it can be difficult. But one thing with exercise and sports science and how much it's become part of the game is that you're looking at the strength and conditioning coaches, kinesiology experts, exercise and science experts who are now down in the front row. The front row used to be reserved for GMs and head scouts, and now it's reserved for those buff guys who are working out every day, who wear the suit.
That's why we're
unlike
here,
myself.
Sam.
Yeah, unlike myself. And what happens is a lot of what you see in these tests becomes predictive. So if there are certain metrics that the exercise and sports science guys can use to predict how much more a player has to physically mature. And also to be able to predict down the road areas which might be concerned for injuries.
Let's pause on that, because we had Matt Nickel on this program 2 years ago, and that's the one thing that he said, strength and conditioning coach, of course, a long time with the Maple Leafs, with the Argos, and he said one of the things that he takes away from this is, where are athletes predisposed to injury? Is there a little weakness on this shoulder? Is this hip firing at 100%? He said that's his main takeaway. I mean, the kids are the kids, and what they can do on the ice is what they can do on the ice, and what they can do here, the physical testing is as such. But the main thing he takes away from it is, I'm not so sure about this guy's shoulder, and this guy's shoulder with that size and that competition, we looking at a 5-year career, a 7-year career, a 9-year career? That's some of the big takeaways for someone like Matt Nickel.
Yeah, it's huge. So, I mean, if you go back to the archaic days of the NHL, and, you're looking at, well, we're going to draft skill. We don't need to worry about any of this other stuff. We want to take the most skilled guys. We want to put those guys on the ice, and we want our coaches to work with them to draw that skill out of them at the next level. And then you added, okay, well, we need to know a little bit about the guy, what type of person he is. Is he going to be a good model citizen for us in our team, with our franchise, in our city, in the community, so on and so forth. And then you add, well, okay, we know about these two things. Let's add that physical element. Let's add the predisposition to injury, and it continues to evolve more and more each year, and this is the place we're in, and we fit comfortably here in Buffalo now because you think about the setup at KeyBank Center where all the teams are able to do their interviews. You got hotels close by, restaurants, that sort of thing, and then you have essentially the entire rink here for us to be able to put all of these players on display in their various tests. So it's a pretty awesome setup right now.
Let me ask you something about the nature of this right now, because there's 2 rinks here. One is, of course, being used for the Scouting Combine. There's another right behind us,
yes,
which still has the sheet on, which still has the ice on. Would there be value, because other sports do this, in doing on-ice testing as well? It's come up as an issue before. Yeah. Can you glean some value for, it's wonderful to watch all the guys go through all this physical and see where they're at physically. Should there not be an on-ice component to this as well?
Well, I think Dan Marr, who's the head of National Hockey League Central Scouting, is continuously trying to evolve this thing.
Sure.
And so I think that there is an opportunity that he asks for a review afterwards, and they talk about, hey, what can we do better? What would you like to see more of? And they take that input from the NHL teams. To this point, there hasn't been the request for an on-ice element to it.
Sure.
For me, the way the game's going, analytics, player tracking, that sort of thing, I think it's just a matter of time before it actually starts to come to fruition.
Let's bring on our first guest. This is
Yes.
Oliver Wahlstrom, who's pretty much on everybody's list inside the top 10. He joins us now. Oliver, how are you today? How's your week been so far? Just bring that mic up a little bit. There we go. The week's been going okay?
A lot of interviews lately. It's stressful, but
yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
Well, I was going to say, what's more stressful, down there or talking to general managers?
I don't know. I mean, I think down there will be. I'm enjoying every moment, though. That's just who I am. I'm going to have fun with everything, so I'm excited.
How much have you prepared specifically for all the things you're going to be put through here?
I could tell you, to be honest, not much. My season ended a couple of weeks ago, so I've just been doing normal workouts with the National Developmental Program there. So, I've done this stuff in the past, but I haven't really, trained for it.
And talk about your year a little bit. Huge numbers. Everyone talks about the shot, and that's kind of the focus of where you are and why you've been ranked so highly all year. Talk a little bit about your year and that part of your game in particular.
Yeah, it was a fun year. The first half was fun. We played well, and then in the second half we had some players come up with us. Jack Hughes and Cam York and Alex Turcotte, which helped a lot. They were awesome players, but it was a fun year. All the guys. It was a fun group of guys, and it was tough in April there with the last game, but hey, that's hockey and it happens. But I enjoyed this year.
It's really interesting, and if you can take us through the program and the season and how it works as part of the USHL, playing against college, and ultimately getting ready for the Worlds in April. Not everyone understands that process, so explain when you start the year what the scheduling is like and how it changes and how the team evolves to get to what happens in April.
Yeah, we play about 15 to 16 NCAA games, and we get beat up in those games. So
the old guys.
Yeah, we stay with teams, but we get beat up pretty well in those games, and those are fun games to play, and we learn from those games. So the second half we play USHL, it's just we dominated this year. We felt we had every USHL team. We played well, and then. For those 2 years, all we do is train for that World Championship at the end, and it was a fun run.
So the USHL season in terms of playoffs, there's still that element, but there's also, I guess, the group splits, and then some guys will go play in the under-18s, and a younger group, and maybe the guys who don't quite make it will stay and play in the USHL playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
How much over the course of the season would you have a look at the rankings? I mean, Rasmus Dahlin draft certainly, but then after first overall, it's kind of jump ball, and everyone's list is different. How much would you pay attention to the list, and how much would friends and family maybe slip you? Hey, here's this guy's top 10. Hey, there's this guy's top 31. Hey, I'm gonna pin this up in your locker in the dressing room. How much would you have a look at the lists?
It's obviously cool, to be up there, at the top guys. But during the season, I'm so focused. I'm focused on my team, what I have to do to get better, and that's at the end of the day, where those things don't really mean much. There's so many different kinds of rankings out there, so I don't really look at them.
What will a team get if they draft you?
Yeah, I'm a big, strong power forward with a lot of skill and creativity. But like you said, my shot is my biggest asset.
Oh boy!
My ability to get that off in tight areas or anywhere on the offensive zone. So you're gonna look for a big producer in offensive zone.
You average 4 shots a game. You told us yesterday the most you ever had in a game, I believe, was 15. Who is your idol? Who's the player you look at and you say, you know what, I want to be like that guy?
Yeah, my childhood hero is Alex Ovechkin. So I grew up watching him all the time, and but my player I look at the most is Patrick Laine. I feel we have similar release points when we shoot, and just how we play the game. I feel we're pretty similar. So I look at those two guys.
Your shot is phenomenal. Sam pointed out. How much do you work on that? Are you still working on that? What do you take from someone like Patrick Laine? Like, what do you learn from players around the NHL that you watch, and how much you work on that shot? Because it's one of the best in the draft, maybe the best in the draft.
Yeah, it started, my dad put the plexiglass down in grass at home when I was little, and I'd come home and just rip pucks on my own.
Yep.
I don't believe in, someone teaching me how to shoot. I think you can just have a bucket of pucks, shoot on your own, and learn things on your own. And, that's what I did my whole life. And, I look at Patrick Laine and how he shoots from awkward angles to surprise the goalie sometimes. And,
sure.
I do that sometimes behind the net. Look for bank shots off the goalie's back or something. So I look for all those little things.
In terms of your family involvement, what's the day going to mean when you get up there and the name is called? What's that going to mean to you and your family?
Yeah, it's a dream come true. Obviously, going through that when I was younger, I would watch the drafts. The NHL Draft I was high on, and I picture myself walking up on the stage when I was younger. So. No, it's going to be really, really, it's going to be a cool feeling to have my parents, my sister, the one who's really close to me, she's going to be there, and I'm going to have a childhood friend with me there. So, it's going to be an unbelievable experience. I can't wait. Yeah,
it's going to be such a neat thing. And, getting back to what you're saying, looking at the rankings, this poor guy, all he'd have to do is open the page because he's going to be right near the top. And it's been that way all year. So you're pretty lucky in that regards. You can say you don't look, but really all you just a quick peek, and there's Wallstrom, in the top.
He's
top
not
10
getting
for
past
sure.
the fold, is what you're saying, Sam. He's not getting past the fold.
That's it. Now, if you had your druthers, and I know you talked about Washington and Alex Ovechkin, but if there was a team out there that was your favorite growing up, or maybe you've looked at their roster and said, hey, there might be some opportunity there. Have you thought about that and where you might like to go?
I haven't really thought about that. I want to be in the NHL. It doesn't matter what team I get selected by, but yeah, obviously I like Boston. I love Boston. Yeah. That's where I grew up. The Garden there is awesome. That rivalry with Montreal has been awesome for many years. So Boston's a cool place. That'll be cool to play. So
unless they make a trade to get high into the first round, I hate to break the news to you. I don't think you're going to Boston. I don't think you're going to still be there when Boston picks. Yeah. What kind of hockey player was Dad?
He was a Swede, so he's from Sweden. So he was a little left wing, 5'9" speedster.
Yep.
He told me he didn't have the greatest hands. He wasn't like that, but man, he could skate. I saw some highlights of him. So he got a couple goals every now and then, a couple assists, but he was scratched every now and then when he plays for college. So
how much? We always talk about parents around this time of year with the combine, with the draft on the horizon. Tell us about some of the sacrifices, some of the things that the family made for you to get you to this place right now.
Yeah, my father's been there every step of the way. He made outdoor rinks for me when I was little. He would take time off of work to take me to 13-hour drives to Toronto. He was just there for every step of the way, and I can't thank him enough. And he pushed me at a young age, and now he's sitting back, relaxing. He's going to retire soon, play some golf. So he's enjoying this moment a lot.
Who's going to be happier, you or him, when you get picked?
I don't know. I think he's an emotional guy. He's going to be very happy, and to be able to hug him at that scene is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that we like to do sometimes, you get into that peer group and not asking where you would rank guys or whatever else, but maybe a bit of a scouting report on some of the other guys that you're here with from your team. It was been an unbelievable year for the under-18 program. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, how last year wasn't quite the year. 2 years ago was pretty awesome. Then it had a bit of a dip last year, but this year, you're going to see a lot of buddies joining you on the stage in that first round. So take a guy like Joel Farabee, for example. Give us a bit of a scouting report on Joel.
Yeah, he's an awesome player. We're tight, and we play together a lot. And he just the way he competes, I respect that. He's an awesome competitor, and he's a fierce player on the ice. He may not seem like that, but he's just he's dialed in every time he steps on the ice, and I respect guys like that. And he puts the puck on my stick in the good spots. So,
you gotta love that.
Yeah, I can't thank him enough for that. But no, he's an awesome competitor, and the kid likes to win, and I like that a lot.
Matthias Samuelson. Let's go there next. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, my roommate. So I drive him around. He doesn't have his license, so I drive him around, and he's got a huge potential in him. He's got a big frame, and just the way he plays. He skates well for being a guy that big, and he was the leader of our team, the captain, and I look up to a guy like that. I admired him. The way he carries himself. He's laid back, relaxed, and no matter what, he's the same guy. So I love that kid. He's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait for him to get called.
Just want to get back where you mentioned Joel Farabee as well, and that line with you and him and Jack Hughes was phenomenal. No one else was touching the puck when you guys are on the ice. What made that line work? Why was that so successful?
Yeah, I think, we're top 3 players, and, we all wanted the puck. But in that scenario, we know where each other are. I tell Jack, hey, give me the puck, I give you back. We tell each other that, and, we find each other. That's just, we communicate, and, us 3 are competitors. We want to win, and that helped us a lot. We have compete some lines, too, in the Worlds, which was good.
Yep.
Yeah, Jack Hughes, I mean, his name's going to start to, obviously, it's already start to come up for next year. And having the chance to play with him beyond his line, what makes him so good?
He's an unbelievable kid. I was roommates with him. I was roommates with Quinn the year before. So, just how he carries himself. He loves playing hockey. On the ice, he's got that good cocky flair to him, which I love. He's got that flair, and he's just a funny kid. And that's some people look at that. First overall guy next year, he's gonna have a lot of pressure on him. But hey, he's ready for it, and I can't wait for him to get drafted next year.
Vision, shooting, playmaking. Where do you find Jack's strengths to be?
I think he's got everything.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a McDavid, but no, he's his shooting's good. His passing's unbelievable. You just gotta be in the right spot, and the puck comes to you. And then also, just who he is as a person. I love joking around with him. He jokes with me all the time. So, he was a younger guy on our team, but me and him, we led that team pretty well. So it was fun.
Awesome. Were you always a 12-month of the year hockey guy, or did you take a break, play other sports? Where were you at as a kid?
When I was little, I played a lot of soccer. Obviously, my dad being from Sweden,
Yep.
I played a ton of soccer. Lacrosse was my thing. I loved that.
Oh, yeah?
So when I was little, and then also a little
Box or field?
field.
Yeah.
A little side. I raced motocross when I was 7 to about 13. I lived in Maine, and
Why'd you stop?
it's just dangerous. I sprained my thumb one time, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. So.
How can I shoot the puck with a sprained thumb? No way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty cool. Cool. Did you do any BMX stuff too, or is it just strictly in the motocross?
No, just strict. I like mountain biking. I did that a lot.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
fun. So I'm a huge outdoorsy guy.
So let me ask you this on that same topic. It's come up a lot lately that you pick a sport, you stay with it, you're 12 months of the year, and that's it. But now it's starting to go back the other way, where they're saying, hey, get away from the rink, get away from hockey for a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe play baseball, find something else, lacrosse, whatever it is. Where would you stand on that as a guy who's kind of going through all that right now?
Yeah, after the season, I take, I don't skate for a month. I don't skate a month or a month and a half. I just play golf. I love playing basketball.
Yeah, nice.
And I play pickup basketball all the time. So, I just take a month off of skating. Just don't even look at the ice or go to the rink. But, I get some lifts in. And then, when July comes around, it's when I go full bore there. So, I got a passion for hockey, but after the season, I think it's time to rest. I think it's healthy, and it just makes me more hungry to come back after that. So,
Okay.
Off to Boston College.
Yep.
Why BC?
I think it was just a good fit for me. Obviously I was 100% dialed in on Harvard, but I just couldn't get through admissions there.
Yep.
And I think I haven't been home in 4 or 5 years in my hometown Boston, and I think I have my alumni network will be there. My strength coach, my stride envy Adam Nicholas will be there. My skating, so I think everything's teed up for me there. If you have to go back and develop for a year, so I'm excited.
How far away from the NHL, in your mind, are you? How close are you to making the NHL?
I feel mature. I feel like my body's mature. I feel I can play next year. I feel good. But there's some tendencies where I need to work on my game. It just depends on what team drafts me, and BC is a great place for me to go back and develop.
What do you think you need to work on?
I think I got to get better with playing out without the puck. Those top end goal scorers at a young age. I'll have a mind of offense, and sometimes I get carried away with playing without the puck and playing that D zone.
How much do you watch NHL right now? You're someone that watches the league a lot. You watch a lot of hockey.
Yeah, I watch a ton of hockey. Washington's in the Stanley Cup final, my favorite team. So I'm dialed in. I sit in the couch an hour before the game. So
which team style do you like the most? Like which team style do you think fits your game the most?
I
know a lot of players want to play Vegas because up and down the ice, the ice, a lot of fun, wide open. What about you?
I'm a big Washington Capitals fan. I like how they play, Kuznetsov and those top guys. They have a lot of room to do their creativity and things like that. And I like how Chicago plays too. You got Patrick Kane there, and then you also have Jonathan Toews, who's an unbelievable, two-way guy.
Yep.
So it evens out. So those two teams are I like a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Sam, anything else?
No, we're good.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks so much. That's a real pleasure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oliver, thanks so much. Best of luck in Dallas. We'll see you later on this month.
Thank you.
Grab that from me. Thank you so much. That's Oliver Wallstrom from the development program in the United States, and someone, Sam, I believe that you have in at number 6.
Yep.
What do you like about him?
Well, the size is always going to play, and you're a big, thick body guy. So if you're a shooter and you're a thick body guy, and he talked about his physical maturity,
Yep.
that if that's your thing, you can get set up in a good shooting position, kind of like Patrick Laine. You're going to have some success because you're not bumped easily off the puck, out of position. You have the ability to work down low, tips and rebounds and that sort of thing, and have that good low center of gravity. So I like what he brings to the table. But the number one thing, and that sticks out, it's like Philip Zadina. You can go through the list and pick out guys who are just pure snipers.
Yeah.
He is one of those. And when you look at goal scoring in the National Hockey League, especially at even strength, it's a difficult thing.
For sure.
And he's able to bring that to the table. So, I also like there's a little bit of adversity in his background too. In terms of his family, we didn't get much into that, but in our interviews with him yesterday, we talked a lot about that stuff. And not that I'd love for the kid to go through adversity, but I'd love kids who are able to come through it.
For sure.
So when I'm sitting there, and if I'm a scout or I'm a general manager, and I've seen a young man who's had to endure some of the things that he's had to endure, boy, that tells me that he's driven. It tells me that he's probably a lot more mentally mature, and it tells me that he is of pretty good character, because to be able to get through some of that stuff, it's difficult. It's difficult. So you pull for kids like that, and at the end of the day, you're looking at the entire package. It's obviously big physical dude, shoots the puck well, so you got the on-ice element, and then you've got the adversity to kind of cap things off in terms of what he's able to bring to the table from the mental side.
I want to have a look here. We wanted to bring Oliver on as quickly as possible. He's got testing coming up a little bit later on, so we wanted to get his obligation to talk to us.
That was really nice of him to do that.
We appreciate
really nice.
that. But I want to have a look at your top 10 here. And this is the top 10 list from Sam Cosentino, Sportsnet.ca, and this was your lottery draft.
Yep.
Okay, so this was May, and no surprise, Rasmus Dahlin in at number 1. And then after sort of everybody's list is a little bit different than everyone else's. Some people we've seen Brady Tkachuk in at number 2. We've seen Philip Zadina in at number 2. You have Andrey Sveshnikov for the Barrie Colts in at number 2. I just want to run these down really quick. Sveshnikov in at number 2 of the Barrie Colts. Philip Zadina, whom you mentioned from the Halifax Mooseheads, in at number 3. Brady Tkachuk from Boston University in at number 4. Adam Bokvist from Brynäs in Sweden in at number 5. We just heard from Oliver Wahlstrom. He's in at number 6. Noah Dobson of Acadie Bathurst, the MasterCard Memorial Cup champions, in at number 7. Evan Bouchard, captain, London Knights, defenseman. Right-hand shot in at number 8. Number 9, Quinn Hughes, and Hughes going to the University of Michigan. And Barrett Hayton, the 6'1" center from the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Since that list published, how much in your mind has changed? And I'm looking at Noah Dobson specifically.
Yeah, for sure it's going to change a little bit. I think, when you watch Noah play, and obviously tons of scouts there specifically to watch him, because in terms of the draft eligibles at the Memorial Cup, they're just, a lot of guys lower on the list. So Dobson being the top 5, a lot of eyes on him. I think his play over the course of the event really elevated him, and I don't think he gets outside of 5 now. So that'll be one change that they make. I mean,
you don't think he gets outside of 5?
No, I don't think he goes outside of 5. You think about the package for a sec. You've talked to the kid.
Wonderful
kid. He's hockey mad.
Yeah.
He loves the game, and he can tell you, hey, I saw Vegas. You know what? They won game 2, or game 1, playing with their 4th line. Like, he'd be able to break it down for you. So he's into it. I love that about him. Not all kids are like that these days. They get away from the rink, and it's all about Fortnite and boom, 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 music, whatever else, right? But he's into it. So, like Ollie was saying here, hey, I'm an hour before the coach. I'm watching the pregame. I'm ready to watch it. So he's one of those type of guys. Next thing is size, okay? 6'3". There's probably a little bit room to go up, and there's a whole lot of room to pack some pounds in that frame.
Yep.
Probably 20, maybe 25. And now you're talking about that physical specimen. And when he gets his man strength, I mean, my goodness. Now you have a guy who has the ability to read the play, when to jump, when to support, when to go up on the rush, when to kind of hang back. So he thinks the game well.
Yeah.
So now what you're doing is you're just checking off all these boxes. Boom, 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 boom. Size, yes. And when we look at this draft, it's kind of the year the defensive probably 12, 13 are going to go in the first round, a lot like 2008. We'll touch more on that later.
Yep.
But now you're looking at a guy like Noah Dobson, who does a lot of the things that the traditional new puck mover does. The small guy who buzzes around, who maybe is not so as aware defensively.
Right.
Well, Noah is all of that. Plus, he's a good D-man. Good on retrievals, stick position, body position. He's got all those things figured out. So it's a really, really cool thing to watch a guy who was already highly ranked to take his game to a next level against that type of competition in those pressure situations and elevate his game further. Like that, it was awesome to watch him. Tons of scouts were saying, oh, geez, I'm texting with guys. I'm like, hey, you know what? You're sitting there outside the 10. You may as well just stop watching this game because Noah Dobson will not be outside of 10. And I truly believe now he's inside of 5. I really do.
Right hand shot.
Right hand shot. That's the other thing.
That's a biggie.
What's your big thought on the right hand shot?
Add 10% of the contract.
There you go.
Right away. And, he's an interesting guy, too. I mean, he went to Red Bull Academy for a couple of years. And, every year there's one player who you see all throughout the season, and usually it's a defenseman. Last year was Miro Heiskanen. Ended up going 3rd overall to Dallas, who leaps and bounds. And Noah Dobson was that guy this year.
Yeah.
Really raw, and you said yourself at the beginning of the season, there's something there. There's a lot of there. Let's see what the season brings. And if he can sneak inside the top 5, are you ready to call him this year's Miro Heiskanen?
Yeah,
different player, obviously.
I would say that because,
guy that.
Yeah, right, Jeff, because at the start of the year at the Ivan Helenka, I mean, you need a search warrant to find him on pretty much anyone's list.
Yeah.
And as he started to progress, and Mario Pouliot, the coach at Bathurst, said, all right, let the horses run a little bit.
Yeah.
Then he started to go, and people are like, oh, yeah, this point per game guy, pretty good, 17 goals, good shot, ability to get it through. The other thing for me about the Memorial Cup is that you go to those morning skates and you go to the practices, and you're able to see the details that he works on.
Sure.
I mean, I watch him work that move where it's this little stutter step, open up a lane, drag it, boom, get a little wrist shot through. Who's working on that? Working on pulling pucks off the wall, working on walking the line, the line. I mean, these are things that outside of the team drills, he was doing on his own at the end of practice. And when you look at that team in general, Noah Dobson fit perfectly in there because no one ever wanted to get off the ice. I mean, literally, the assistant coach, Brian Lizotte, had to pull the puck off the ice and say, guys, that's it. Blowing the whistle 3 times. What else do you want to do? Pull the puck off the ice.
Yeah.
Well, Noah Dobson will be part of that group who's last to walk off the ice. So there's so much to like there.
Noah Dobson, one of the elite defensemen in this year's NHL Draft. Here we are at the Scouting Combine. Jeff Merrick alongside Sam Cosentino in Buffalo. But this is the Rasmus Dahlin draft. And we got to get to Rasmus Dahlin. I want to play this feature done by Elliot Friedman here in a couple of moments. But he's been number 1 from stem to stern. Day 1, it's Rasmus Dahlin. If you want to be a little bit hot takey, maybe bump Andrey Sveshnikov in there. But this is the Rasmus Dahlin draft. And from your viewings, from your analysis and what you've seen of Rasmus Dahlin, what are the Buffalo Sabres getting in this young man?
They're getting that generational player. They're getting a player who once ago told me can impact the game potentially from the back end as much as Connor McDavid did up front. Right. I mean, that's heady praise. Is that going to happen right off the hop? I don't think so, only because the position and playing D is a lot harder. But there's so many things to like about his game. And there's 2 things that I think that have really gone underplayed here. First of all, he's got a bit of bite to him.
Yeah.
You got to push him. But if you go back to last year when he was going back and forth between the SHL and the under-20 team in Frölunda, I think in about 25 or 30 games there, I want to say he led the under-20 league in penalty minutes. So there is something to be said about that, and he can be pushed to the point where he's got some bite in him. We talked to him a little bit about Brady Tkachuk and the interactions they had at the World Juniors, and he said
it's all Christmas card list.
Yeah, that's right, but it was all in competition, and he welcomes that. And the other part is the defensive game. And one thing that we've had some conversations with people about, and I think it might have been Manny Viveros that we were talking to
Swift Current head
about
coach.
the Swift Current head coach. And the one thing he said that today's shutdown defenseman isn't the big bruising guy who cross-checks everyone in front of the net and throws those big hits. The big shutdown defenseman in today's game is the guy who gets back on the puck quickest with his retrievals and processes that first decision the quickest.
Right.
Because what's a shutdown defenseman's job is really to keep the puck out of your end. Where it's different before, it was more trying to keep the puck out of your own net.
Yeah.
Now that shutdown defenseman is trying to keep the puck out of your own end. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're seeing the difference. So Rasmus has the ability to do that because he processes the game so quickly. His skating is so wonderful that he simply gets back, makes that first decision, puck's out of your zone. You're not forced to be that physical guy and defending guy. Now, it's going to happen once in a while, but for the most part, he's also has those shutdown elements in terms of the new age.
You know, he is very much that new age defenseman. Grew up mainly playing forward and transitioned his teen years to become a defenseman, and will now be the first overall pick. And the point that you bring up, I think, is a good one as well. When you look at Dahlin, you say, you know, the main part of his game is, you know, he's slippery, he's silky, he can jump in on the rush, he's an offensively minded guy, he can get back, he can, you know, move the puck up the ice. And he's not shy about stepping up into a guy either.
No.
Like that's the part of the game that really intrigues me from Rasmus Dahlin.
Right.
He is not shy at all.
Yeah, there's some of that physicality to it and that bite and the edge that we were talking about before. But the point that I wanted to bring up with you, and you're always a guy who's following the trends of the game and where the game's going. Talk about that four-man rush now. I mean,
everybody.
Everybody.
Yep.
Everybody's going. And so where else can you find a guy who has those forward instincts, hands, playmaking ability, who plays on your back end?
Yeah. Oh, I know. And you know what? If you're the Buffalo Sabres or a Buffalo Sabres fan, you say to yourself, okay, let's chart out the future here. And what does the next 10 years look like? Jack Eichel, Casey Mittelstadt, Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to see the building blocks of what the Buffalo Sabres are going to become in the NHL. You know, I wonder, Rasmus Dahlin steps into the NHL, how quickly is he an impact player?
Well,
like how quickly are we saying, hey, this guy's a top 20 defenseman?
I think he impacts the game immediately, sheer minutes. So I look at him, and I think he walks in and plays 20 minutes right away.
Yeah.
So that puts you as a top 4 or top 5 guy. Now, the physical part of it, the scheduling, that's going to wear him down a little bit.
Yep.
That's a difficult position to play. I look at Aaron Ekblad, who went first a couple of years ago when we were in Florida, and he was able to step in because he was so physically mature. I mean, you stood beside that kid, and you're like, at 16, he looked like a man already.
Sure.
So by the time he was drafted, you know, as an exceptional player 2 years later, you're like, wow, this. Like you walk into an NHL dressing room and say, that guy doesn't look out of place. You'll walk into Buffalo's room next year, and you'll see Rasmus Dahlin and say, that baby-faced guy is really thin. He looks a little bit out of place here. So it's going to take some time to, to add some strength. And he knows what he has to do, and he'll go about doing all of those things just as he's done here in his career to this point. So I don't think in terms of sheer points, he'll put up some numbers. I don't think he's going to jump off the page at you. But I think where he's going to make an impact immediately is that he's going to be able to play 20 minutes a game. He's
been compared to, he's been described sort of as a combination of Erik Karlsson meets Victor Hedman.
Yeah.
And, you talk to, various Swedish defensemen, and they always say the same thing. He's better than I was at that age. It doesn't matter whether it's Karlsson, whether it's Hedman, take your pick. Buffalo Sabres are getting, to your point, that generational guy, the franchise changer. On the blue line. We've seen a lot of franchise-changing forwards, whether it's Austin Matthews, whether it's Jack Eichel, certainly Connor McDavid top of that list, Jack Hughes next season, Alexis Lafreniere, getting ahead of ourselves here for 2020. But for the first time, we're seeing someone do that from the back end. Want to get to this feature. Elliot Friedman voicing this one. This is a little bit more on Rasmus Dahlin. Get to know the name. You will hear it plenty in the next 15 years in the NHL.
Rasmus Dahlin is pretty much consensus across the board.
He's number one today. He'll be number one right up until the draft.
A guy who can come in to the National Hockey League and immediately have an impact for your club.
This is what it looks like to be in the eye of the storm. A mountain of hype building up before you've played a single NHL game. For 17-year-old Rasmus Dahlin, he's taking it one step at a time.
I don't think that I'm so good right now. I always want to be better.
The town of Lidköping sits on the shores of Vänern, the largest lake in Sweden, 130 kilometers northeast of Gothenburg.
Here where we're living until I was like 12 years old. So this is my old house. Here we played a lot street hockey. When I didn't have school, I played here and I was always here. Everything started here.
Mostly played center. I think he started playing D when he was around 13, and I guess that's been very good for his development.
2 years after switching to defense, Rasmus caught the eye of his favorite hockey club, Frölunda, and quickly went from childhood fan to one of its top prospects.
I was down watching an under-18 practice. There was one kid who was, I think I saw 5 minutes of the practice, and then I asked the coach who that guy was, and it was Rasmus.
Frölunda's coaching staff decided the best thing for the 16-year-old's development was to have him train with their men's Swedish Hockey League team.
His first practice with us, he got the puck on the blue line, guy skated right at him, he put it between the legs, jumped inside, took the puck again and top shelved it. And we just looked at each other and said, well, we can't keep him away from this anymore.
I got a call from Per, and he said that I was going to play against Skellefteå, so I just, what? Serious?
At 16 years old, Dahlin became the first player born in the year 2000 to play in Sweden's top league.
It was very emotional. He skated out, and I filmed it with my with my cell phone, and I think I cried.
I've been in the league for many years, and I haven't seen that talent player in that age before.
Här är det Dahlin som visar upp sin fina skridskoåkning och skapar den här möjligheten. Rasmus Dahlin gör 1-0!
Dahlin's nightly flashes of offensive brilliance and bone-crunching hits had the Swedish hockey media buzzing.
Before last season, I haven't done an interview, and then after my first game, it just, exploded.
Rasmus Dahlin.
Och vi gratulerar så mycket till målet.
Den här killen, Rasmus Dahlin.
When you come as a young kid and you do that stuff, he's right, it explodes.
Frölunda has helped manage the hype and his development, limiting his media availability away from the ice while encouraging his creativeness on it.
There's not going to be highlights goal every game. There's not going to be highlight games every game. You're going to have games you're going to suck. For us in here, it's not a problem.
I think it's not fair for anyone to get compared with players like Erik Karlsson and Nick Lidström. But this age, as Rasmus is in right now, Erik Karlsson wasn't at his level, or Nick Lidström wasn't at his level.
Dahlin is the consensus #1 prospect and has a chance to accomplish what only one Swedish player has before.
With all the good players we had over the years, and it's just Sandin, I think, is #1, so it will be huge for sure.
He certainly looks like a franchise defenseman, without a doubt. It's loop-sided because I want the Red Wings to make the playoffs, but I'd like to draft Rasmus Dahlin.
For me, that came from this small place, it's a dream for me to play in the NHL. It's always been a dream for me.
And there he is, Sam Cosentino, Rasmus Dahlin, the future of hockey on the blue line in the NHL. You know, after that great piece there by Elliot Friedman, and after hearing you talk about him, after seeing that piece and hear scouts and GMs and fellow players talk about the only thing I'm waiting to hear is, did this guy invent oxygen? Because, like, honestly, when you look at, you know, the skill set and the package that Rasmus Dahlin brings to the game, you say to yourself, you know, because he can nitpick everybody's game. We just had Oliver Wahlstrom here, and he can nitpick the game. He can nitpick pretty much everyone's game in the top round, in the first round, certainly in the top 10. But when you look at Rasmus Dahlin, like, when you want to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, like, where are the flaws? Where are the blemishes, Sammy?
It's just honestly, it's just a physical maturity. That's the only thing. And here's a guy who's going to work at it. But I don't know, maybe a bit harder shot. I don't know.
Well, you know what? That's the thing too. He doesn't have the big back scratch and slap shot from the point.
But he has has the same sort of thing, like a Noah Dobson, you know, drag, get it through, whatever else. But
yeah,
I don't know. There's really not much to like, and it was pretty cool because I had the opportunity to spend some time with him yesterday, you know, and just kind of hunker down on on what it's like to be an 18-year-old kid who's going through this. There's autograph seekers, people wanting to take pictures. I mean, it was pretty neat to see, and he's being faced with that already. A little bit here in the World Juniors when we watched him play there, but even more so now.
Let's have a look at your top 10 one more time. And, of course, Rasmus Dahlin in at number 1. Then there's a little bit of a run on wingers. And then we get back to the defensemen. Bokvist, Dobson, Bouchard, and Hughes. Ty Smith just on the outside looking in from the Western Hockey League. Does this draft remind you of any other drafts?
2008. 2008 draft featured, and we can go on and have this debate, and you and I have touched on it before, and your NHL acumen is much different than mine, as I'm focusing on the CHL most of the year. But think about how many true number 1 defensemen there are in the National Hockey League. Think about that for a second.
Yep.
What would you say?
Well, there's not 31.
There's not 31. That's right. There's not one on every team.
No.
20? Maybe. That's probably a little high. Let's say 15.
Between 10 to 15.
Okay. So the ability to draft that number 1 defenseman, it's huge.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to pay that guy, you know, you're going to have to pay through the roof. If you can draft and develop him, that's huge. So let's get back to the 2008 draft and think about that draft. Drew Doughty, number 1 D-man.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Pietrangelo, number 1 D-man.
Yep.
Eric Carlson, number 1 D-man.
A little bit.
All 3 of those guys were featured in that draft. Now, there were some others in there. The Colton Tubert, I don't think, who played in an NHL game.
Bogosian,
John
Shen.
Carlson, Bogosian, Shen, guys who have had long careers. And I think I ran the metrics on it right towards the end of the season. And I think there were 12 or 13 that went in the first round that year. There was one guy in Tubert who didn't play. There was another guy, I think Tyler Kuma was in that one as well. Might have played one NHL game. He was a Minnesota pick. And the rest of them, close to 500 National Hockey League games. And you say, well, that's not a big deal. But think about an 82-game season.
Mm-hmm.
And think about playing 500 games. If you can draft that player who's going to play for you, and then think about the potential of getting one of 3 number 1 guys,
yeah,
I do believe this draft favors almost exactly the same way. 12 or 13 are going to go in the first round. I would say Dahlin is a surefire as there is to be a number 1 defenseman. And one of those other guys is going to emerge.
We just saw Nico Gross, by the way, there. Oh, and here's the 2000. I want to get back to Nico Gross of the Oshawa Generals in a couple of seconds, but have a look at what Sam is talking about right here. We need to mention Tyler Myers. You throw him into the equation as well. That was if you wanted to set your blue line up, 2008 was the time to do it if you're an NHL general manager. Doughty, Bogosian, Pietrangelo, Shen, Myers, Tubert, Carlson, and Carlson. Different spellings there.
I mean, John Carlson, one heck of a player. My goodness, size, shooting ability, puts up points.
Unrestricted free agent this summer, Sam Cosentino. Oh, my goodness. There's Rasmus Dahlin having a look. Before that, we just saw Nico Gross a second ago of the Oshawa Generals, defenseman. Swiss-born player.
Yes.
And, we talk about, the rise of, different nations. We talked to Dominic Bach yesterday, German-born player, plays Växjö in the Swedish league. He's part of a new sort of vanguard of German athletes entering the NHL. And over the past, Nico Hischier went first overall last year. Over the past however many years, we're starting to see that Swiss program really pop.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see more Swiss-born players enter the NHL. And I've always wondered why it took so long. And maybe you can say the same thing about Germany. Maybe you can say, well, the import rules have sort of held them back, held their development back. But Switzerland consistently now, year in, year out, producing high-level athletes. We just saw Nico Gross of the Oshawa Generals a second ago.
He was awesome at the World Juniors. It was a big coming-out party for him. And, we talked to some of the guys, Roger Hunt, the general manager in Oshawa, Bob Jones, their former coach, Nathan McKeever, the assistant coach there, was really adept at the defense position when he played. But Gross he's a really interesting guy because he's got a little bit of get up and go to him. He's got the ability to defend. I really like his well-rounded game. But getting back to the Swiss, Jeff, and I know you like to use this term sometimes, wide brush thoughts on the Swiss.
Sure.
If you go back to where their national program was, they started to implement some coaches from outside of Switzerland. I think that helped. But you go back to where their program was, and oftentimes, as a nation, they had to play such a tight defensive style of game in order to remain in the top division of all the international events.
Good point.
And they'd never really finish high. Every now and then they'd surprise you, traditionally give Canada a run whenever they played, whether it was at the World Juniors, the Under-18s, the Olympics, the Worlds, whatever else. So for the longest time, I think that was a nation that really had to rely on systematic play, on playing defense, and preventing the opposition from scoring in order to stay in that top level.
Yeah.
Now I think they've evolved. You know, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to looking at the game and where it's going, skill development, creativity are things that are now starting to be encouraged in the Swiss program. And now they're going to go from a team that was always fighting to stay in that top level to a nation that is middle of the pack, because they're starting to add that element of being able to score goals, play less defensively, but still play with structure. So I think, as a wide brush thought, I think as a nation, that's kind of where it's happening for Switzerland.
Quick question about Rasmus Dahlin. We just saw him a couple of seconds ago here at the 2018 NHL Scouting Combine. He's going first overall, period. No doubt.
Yeah.
Not even a question. He's going first overall. Why is he doing this?
Yeah, well, you know what? That's a good point. But I give him a lot of credit.
So do I.
You know what? Like, why not do it? Here's the thing. Even personally, you know, I mean, let's make the assumption that he's going to go to Buffalo. I think that's pretty safe to say. So maybe Buffalo is able to gather some information, and you know, once he gets drafted, they can put him into some program based on some of the information derived from these tests. But does he really need to do it? Let's be honest. He was going first overall. If he was sitting there eating donuts in Sweden right now, it wouldn't really matter with this guy. But I think there's always something to learn from it. I think there's the ability to know what, you know, maybe some of your body's limitations. You can kind of figure that out. And at the end of the day, you know what, Jeff? I'll tell you why he's doing it. I'll tell you why.
Because he's a gamer?
He's a competitor. You know, I asked him yesterday. We had a great talk. We talked for about 20 minutes yesterday. And I asked him, what is it about hockey that you like? What drives you to play the game? Winning, period. End of story. Winning.
Yeah.
So you get into this competition. Hey, yeah, Brady Tkachuk, you pissed me off at the World Juniors. Hey, look at this guy. I've heard so much about Hughes. Boquist, yeah, you're my buddy, but you know what? I've heard a lot about you too. Sveshnikov, yeah, Sveshnikov, you want to get some separation here? You want to see why I'm the number one guy? So it's that competitive drive, that edge. That's why he's doing it. He wants to see how he stacks up physically against the rest of the group. Now, just based on his body type alone, it's probably going to be a bit of a challenge. You know, he's just a thin, you know, physically somewhat immature guy. But I guarantee you he is here because he wants to win. He wants to be better than Sveshnikov, not just on the ice, but in the testing and everything he does. That's the type of kid he is.
Have a look here at Dominic Bach. We referenced him a couple of seconds ago. This is an interesting player in this year's draft. He's a first-rounder for many, first-rounder for most. German-born, plays in the Swedish Hockey League. Was drafted in the CHL import draft by Prince Albert, not unlike former countryman, still countryman, Leon Draisaitl. Chose not to go, wanted to go play for the Windsor Spitfires. They didn't select him, obviously PA did, and so he ended up playing in the Swedish Hockey League. What are your thoughts on Dominic Bach, an intriguing forward in this year's draft?
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him play in a CHL environment. There's no question about that for me, because he's a guy who's probably not too far away from playing in the National Hockey League. And I'll sit here and I'll admit I'm a huge CHL proponent. I think everybody knows that. But it's not always for everybody. It's not always for everybody. But for this type of guy, I think when you're really close, I think it suits that type of player's game, because you're getting into big league schedule, you're getting into travel. It gets difficult. The playoffs, I mean, PA made such an awesome push down the run there to get down the end to get into the playoffs. It was unbelievable. I would have loved to have seen him play in that environment, especially when you go back with about a month left in the season and you couldn't find him in the playoff picture.
Yeah.
Mark Hapshide got him going. You know, they started to rock and roll
a
little bit.
Real nice
Cole
run.
Fonstad, you know, they started to move a little bit, and he would have been a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And it would have been really cool to see how he would have performed in those situations. So when it comes to Dominic, he's a fascinating prospect, tall, lanky kid. But I liked his answer. He said, you know what, this is the situation that occurred. It wasn't for my liking. Leon Draisaitl called me. I talked to Leon. Leon was a big proponent of going to PA and a big proponent of the CHL. But quite frankly, I wanted to make my own decision, and I got to give him a lot of credit for that.
Just watching Rasmus Dahlin do bench press. Nice bar speed on the kid, hey?
Bar speed.
He gets that one up quick. Yeah. How quick you get to the bar?
That's my bar speed.
No, you
ain't lying.
You're right. You're right that this guy is a gamer. This guy is here to show that I compete. I'm a competitor. I know I'm going first overall. I'm going to Buffalo. I might as well buy the T-shirt and put on the jersey and the hat right now. But he's here to compete. He's an impressive young man.
My bar speed is way better.
Different type of bar
way
speed.
Better.
Sam Cosentino, different. When you look at this year's draft, and Rasmus Dahlin is going to be joining us here in a couple of moments when he's all done. Joe Valeno of Drummondville is going to join us as well. Heavy on defensemen, heavy on wingers.
Yeah.
Where'd the centers go?
Yeah. So there's the issue going forward, and that's why there's going to be so much more of a premium put on defensemen, because when you look at positional bias going into a draft, I'd say D would be slightly ahead of center, but center not too far behind. And when we're looking at this particular draft class, there's two guys that stick out as being in top 10. Now, things have changed a little bit since the lottery, but Jesperi Kotkaniemi out of Finland, I think, is a guy who's going to move himself into the top 10 because everyone views him as a center, although he played most of the year on left wing. So he's a guy that's going to be really fascinating to watch now, because if you truly can go in there and project him as playing center, that just raised his value and probably bumped him up 5, 6, maybe 8 spots in particular in this draft, because it's not quite as center heavy at the top. The next guy would be Barrett Hayton out of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, who brings kind of that entire package. Good, responsible guy, two-way guy, good in the face-off circle, has some bite to him. So there is that element to it as well when it comes to those guys. So I think that's going to be a fascinating thing to watch, is what happens at the center position. So that, Kotkaniemi is a guy to keep an eye on. Barrett Hayden, those are probably the first two centers to go off the board.
Let's spend a little bit of time here and talk about Kotkaniemi, because he may end up being the first center selected in this year's draft. And he's one of those guys that all throughout the year rise, and then right at the end, everybody jumped on board on his train. His skills package is interesting. Good size, good hands. The knock has always been the skating a little bit for him. Where are you at with Kotkaniemi? You mentioned sneaking in the top 10.
Yeah, well, when in terms of a point producer, shooter, playmaker, really skilled guy, all those elements are present. So I think when it comes to the skating, one thing that's kind of come a long way is the ability for a player to change it.
Yeah.
To change that. I was talking to Al Murray yesterday, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and one thing they addressed with Braden Point, and his quote was, basically he was an average junior skater, which is good, and now he's turned himself into an elite NHL skater, working with Barb Underhill.
Mm-hmm.
So now Braden Point at whatever 5'7" or 5'8", whatever he is, becomes essentially an elite player in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
A top 50 guy this year, and I think he's only got room to go up. But we're talking just a couple of years after his junior career ended as a really undersized guy.
Yeah.
Now he's unbelievable. He's doing all the things now that he did in junior. With his vision, his playmaking ability, goes to dirty areas. He does all of those things, Jeff, but he's now doing it at NHL speed because his boots got better.
Yeah.
So let's get back to Kotkaniemi and talk about that element of his game. It can change. It can get better. But you like so much of the other things that he brings to the table that once the boots get going, forget about it. You're looking at the potential to be a star player here.
I wonder, too, about some of those top teams, and maybe Montreal is the obvious one, in at number 3. If Carolina goes the Sveshnikov route, or maybe they go the Philip Zadina, reunite him with Netskash, play together in international as well. Maybe they want that combination. If you're Montreal, and they've always been looking for the big center, they've always been looking for someone down the middle. 3 might be too high for him, but if you're Montreal, do you look at moving down into that range where he might be available and pick up an asset? See, I see this draft, Sam, in a lot of ways as seeing a lot of teams wanting to go down and still get their guy.
Agree. So it's a really difficult proposition. You have to be extremely confident in yourself as a general manager and your staff, because if you really like that player, you think you can slide back and acquire an asset, I get it. But if you like that player and you think, well, we can slide back because we're going to find a bit more value there and try and sneak him in there, or we don't want the pressure of this guy being, the number 3 overall pick, then that becomes a bit of a challenge, right? So if you really like the guy, jump on him. Jump on him at 3. The thing, when I look at Montreal, though, they could use some D-men as well.
Sure.
So Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Adam Boquist are all going to be there for him at 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's an area you might want to go down the road too. Now let's add the other element to it. I would say, when it comes to Marc Bergevin, he's probably a guy whose clock is starting to tick a little bit. So now, when you look at it in that regard, you might not necessarily take the very best player that you project 3 years down the road. You might need to go get a guy who could play for you right away and impact the game. And in that regard, I think about the Zadina, I think about Brady Tkachuk, because I think Brady can walk into someone's lineup, still be able to score, but give you a lot more if he's not. I don't know if Philip Zadina can do that for you, potentially.
That's a good question. Pause on that for 1 second. How many guys in the draft can you see playing in the NHL next year? Dahlin, certainly. I would say Sveshnikov. I would borderline on Zadina. I think Brady Tkachuk. After that, do you see anyone walking right in?
You'd probably just spitballing it right now. I'd say five guys.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of that depends on where a guy goes and where they are in the lineup. And you know, you're thinking about Carolina. If they move Skinner, you know, does that open a spot up for someone to step in their lineup if they don't want Sveshnikov, if they want to move down?
Yeah.
So you'd say five, but I would have to say Tkachuk, Dahlin, Sveshnikov are guys that play right away. Yeah.
All right, your top 10 list available at sportsnet.ca. We're here live at the NHL Scouting Combine 2018 in Buffalo. We're still going to hear from Rasmus Dahlin, who will join us. He will be selected first overall in Dallas. And then after that, it is a jump ball in a lot of ways. From a Canadian point of view, Sam, where have the Canadians gone?
Yeah.
You're looking, I mean, there's certainly Noah Dobson, there's Evan Bouchard, there's Barrett Hayton, Joe Veleno is going to be dropping by here in a couple of moments, but this isn't a Canadian-heavy draft by any stretch. In a lot of ways, a lot of Swedes, a lot of Finns, a lot of Americans from the development program.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's use the development program as a perfect example, and we talked to Ollie about this when he was up here before. It was a bit of a down year for the program last year. I think, 2 guys went in the first round from the program? This year, that's going to change. So there is that cyclical nature of things. There's no question about it. And they're going to see, you know, Samuelson, Keandre Miller, Wahlstrom, Hughes. Well, Hughes now at Michigan. But you're going to see a number of guys come out of that U.S. under-18 program that get drafted in the first round. So it's just that cyclical nature, I think. And I think the same thing can be said about, about Canadian players. Like, if you go and you look at the WHL, for example, the WHL this year, it's a down year for the Dub. You're going to see maybe Alexiev go in the first round. You'll see Ty Smith go in the first round. That might be it for the Dub. Those 2 guys in the first round. It's a down year.
Yeah. Next year's a big year.
Let's talk about next year.
Next year's a big year for the Western Hockey League.
Right. You're probably looking at six guys that are going to go in the first round next year.
Yeah.
So we're experiencing that cyclical nature there. The Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, you know, in terms of, and we're not always assuming that players coming from those leagues are Canadian. But when you get into 6 or 8 guys from the Dub next year, you're going to see a large contingent of Canadian players. Same thing with the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. A lot of European players go there to play. So you'll see a good contingent of Quebec Major Junior Hockey League players here in the 2004 age group that make it, some of whom will be Canadian. Noah Dobson, you know, at the top of that list. So I think really, Jeff, it just comes down to being the cyclical nature of things.
Let's pause on Noah Dobson here. I want to run this feature here in a couple of seconds, but he's someone that when you go into the Memorial Cup, as we just did in Regina, you're looking for a number of things, looking at the team, who's going to win the entire tournament, and you look at draft-eligible players and what they can do to help themselves and what they can do to hurt themselves. Every single game, Noah Dobson. I mean, Olivier Galipeau, Defenseman of the Year, QMJHL, playing on that Acadie Bathurst blue line as well. But man, Noah Dobson was fantastic.
Oh man, he was unreal in every facet of the game.
Yeah,
really, like going back on pucks, good job, jumping up in the rush. If you go back and think about one really interesting play that he made that impacted the entire tournament, an empty net goal
against Regina.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens there, for those who aren't familiar with the Memorial Cup, when you get close to the round robin being over, we're in a situation where 3 teams were 2-1. Now you get into goal 4 goes against. There's a very complicated formula that they use to determine, you know, the semifinalist versus the team that has to go on the tiebreaker. That goal, that empty net goal, as a defenseman protecting his own end of the ice with the empty net, jumps up on a play at the end of the game and scores that empty net goal. Essentially allowed Acadie Bathurst to move right to the final, change the complexion of the tournament. If they have to take the long route and now go play in a semifinal, maybe even a tiebreaker, who knows? Things might turn out differently. And right after the game, he was aware of what had happened in that game in terms of the goals for and goals against differential. That's how aware he is.
Yeah.
So that was, to me, one thing that was really, really intelligent, but risk-taking venture at the same time, and it came through it and worked out perfectly for his team.
All right, he'll be one of the defensemen selected in the first round, certainly in the top 10. The question becomes, where does Noah Dobson go vis-a-vis the top 5? He is a Memorial Cup champion. Let's learn a little bit more about Acadie Bathurst's Noah Dobson.
Titan is proud to select Noah Dobson.
Noah Dobson, who plays with Acadie Bathurst at Teton. He is just rocketing up the charts right now.
Noah Dobson, keep an eye on him. He's number 53.
Aston récupère, laisse vers Dobson, le tir de but! Noah Dobson, 1-0 le Titan!
He trained like a pro, he sleep like a pro, he eat like a pro, he's practicing like a pro, and he's playing like a pro.
One of the top defensemen in all of the QMJHL at just 17.
We saw it when he came at 16 in the team. He was already a pro. I mean, all his routine, the things he does, it's not by accident that he becomes so good. It's because of his preparation and work ethic.
Big shot, and he scores! Noah Dobson!
He's the type of guy that's going to work on his weaknesses. He knows what he has to work on, and like I said, he works hard every practice and every game, and he knows what he needs to do to get better.
He's not like a high prospect for nothing. He's only 17. He's already a pro. The way he acts, the way he treats himself.
Entendez-vous les clameurs dans la Légion Chaleur? Le Titan est champion de la Coupe du Président!
We had great support throughout the whole season, and come playoffs, our fans really ramped it up a lot. The whole community was behind us and supported us, and I think in a small knit community like Bathurst, I think it made it that much more special.
The Acadie Bathurst Teton, the champions of the QMJHL, are now the champions of the CHL.
My dad used to always tell me that quote, if you're not broke, don't fix it. So I think growing up in that environment and just kind of carried on is what you're comfortable with. Some guys are different, they like to change it up, and I'm just more of a guy that likes to keep it simple, keep the same routine. And like you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
So that's Noah Dobson of Acadie Bathurst as we welcome you back inside here in Buffalo. The 2018 NHL Scouting Combine, being joined now by the general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, John Chaika. So if he's available at number 5, what do you think, Noah Dobson?
Yeah, he's certainly a consideration. Impressive kid. Obviously the Mem Cup
helped a lot, eh?
Yeah, no, I mean, doesn't help a lot, but it's just another piece, of the puzzle to see him in that situation against those players and do that well. So
in a situation like that, do you gain new information, or does it cement what you already believe about the player?
Yeah, I think we gain a bit of new information. Certainly, I hadn't seen him play at that level, and with those high stakes and be as good as he was. But I think then we had our interview with him, and he's an impressive kid, like I said. So it didn't surprise me at all based off his performance, the quality of character he has.
The interview process has become such a big part of things. When you talk about character, it's not something that you can chintz out on, where maybe 10 years ago in the National Hockey League, you'd weight everything so heavily to skill. When it comes to your position and you're looking at the interview process, I know it takes place all year long, but where would you weight it in terms of skill now and character? I mean, I tend to see those things coming a lot closer together.
Yeah, one of the things we're most excited about in Arizona is that we have a young group that's very talented, but we also believe that they're high character kids. They love working together, they love pushing each other. They've all won at various levels, and really, really high character people. So, we weight the interview process, and like you said, it's not easy to kind of tease that out in 20 minutes, but at the same time, you got to consider it, especially when we're picking 5. We're looking at a guy that we think, should be with the organization 10, 15 years, should be a core piece, should be a leader of the organization. So you're picking a player, but you're picking a person at the end of the day.
Do you guys use any sort of, and not to get into great detail, but any sort of psychology test or any special person that you bring in to, for the interview process?
Yeah, I think we kind of view it as, like you said, a year-long process.
Yeah.
So, the combine's an opportunity for someone like myself. You watch them all year. I don't have the time necessarily to go meet these people, have dinners and stuff like that. So for me, it's good to get to know them on a personal level after watching them all year. But we certainly, we look at every avenue to try and gain as much information as we can.
You know, so much of this draft, certainly from a marketing point of view and from a focal point of view, is this young man, Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah.
He'll go first overall to the Buffalo Sabres. That's the 2-foot putt in the draft. Yeah. But what are the Sabres getting in this young man from your point of view? Yeah. What do you see in Dahlin?
I mean, Bods is not willing to swap picks, unfortunately. So I haven't.
Did you try? Like, honestly, can you?
In jest more than, seriously. But no, I mean, honestly, I haven't been doing it for 25 years. We've got scouts that have been doing it for 25 years. They feel like he's the best defensive prospect they've ever seen. Our Swedish scouts believe that he's up there and could be the best Swedish prospect they've ever seen. So, I mean, don't want to hype it too much because he's yet to play an NHL game, but certainly the potential and the ceiling is extremely high.
From a skill set point of view, and we'll focus on this Dahlin, whether it's Dobson, Bouchard, Bookfist, whomever in the top 10, Quinn Hughes. What do you want to see a defenseman do in 2018? To me, it's a real tricky position to nail down philosophically.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in a D-man
That's
in
a great
2018?
question. Again, I think we're looking for high-impact players, and obviously at that position, you're able to play a lot of minutes. You're able to play, matchup type roles and have a big impact on the other team's offensive players.
Right.
But there's also, like you said, there's kind of different variations of those players now, and what we're looking for is just guys that have an ability to impact the game in all three zones. Play a certain style of play that we like to play, and believe that that's conducive to winning. And without getting into too much detail, that's kind of exactly what we're looking for.
Do you see this sort of sport as far as positioning goes? I mean, everybody lines up for the face-off in their traditional positions, but we don't. Whether it's on a forecheck, you don't say, okay, this is the right winger's job, the center's job.
Yep.
Now it's just, okay, this is F1. This is your spot. Do you see the game evolving that puts less necessity on this is a right winger and this is what he does, this is a left winger and this is what he does, and the positions are all sort of morphing into this weird sort of, almost everyone becomes a rover in a lot of ways?
Yeah, that's another excellent question. You're on a roll.
All right, I got two, Sam. I'm good.
I'm leaving.
That's that's something we've discussed. Versatility is a real asset now in the game, and just when people want to play fast, you have to be able to play multiple roles and play multiple positions basically. So. Yeah. Those players that have versatility are certainly a premium. We talk a lot about defensemen having forward-level skill, and we got one we think of Jacob Chikrin, who he's big, he's strong, he skates well, but his skill level, his puck skills is at a forward level. So, again, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, maybe it's a different story. But those D are now so talented. The forwards are. Learning defense at such a young age, that those guys that are well-rounded, that can play multiple positions, I think is an asset.
Where you got him, did Chikrin feel like a gift for you guys?
Yeah, he's a gift for our organization, just with the type of person he is, and the defenseman that's back there that can really drive play. And like I said, he's a character kid. He works his butt off, and we're fortunate to have him.
I want to talk a little bit about the number side of things, and if you look at taking a kid from the USHL or from the program, Europe, the Canadian Hockey League, are you guys able, and again, not to get into great detail, I don't want to give secrets away, are you able to somehow level the playing field when you look at the different levels of competition with any of the analytic work that you've been able to do?
Yeah. I mean, look, you can adjust for some things and look at leagues statistically, analytically, and it is interesting once you get into some of the more advanced statistics how the leagues vary from league to league, and I think you can learn a lot just from that high-level league analysis, but. At the same time, we try to focus in fundamentally on what the player is and try to, put them in a neutral environment and, view them kind of apples to apples. And then, like I said, they might be playing a different league with a different style, different coach, different line mates, different competition. But at the same time, fundamentally at the core, what they are is what we're trying to draft. So, and sometimes you like to make things really complex, and other times you like to make things extremely simple. So we try to do both.
Now that you've been on the job here for a little while, what have you learned over the last couple of years?
The draft's hard.
No. Oh yeah, no doubt. I don't envy that job.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I learned that, but it's you're always finding new ways. You're always iterating on your own process. The kids continue to evolve. The game continues to evolve. To your point about skill and character, I think Vegas teaches us a lot about chemistry, character, and personalities, and getting the right fits and the right culture. So, You're always learning every day on this job, and I think the day I stop is probably the day I'm no longer employed. But it's been fun, and I enjoyed that experience. That's the part of the gig that I love the most.
Draft lottery day has now become a huge deal in the NHL. That's the day you can change franchise. And the draft itself, from your point of view, is the draft and everything before and even the days afterwards more important to your organization or any NHL organization? Is it more important than trade deadline day?
Yeah.
The trade deadline day is almost become pretty quiet, but draft day, it's not just about the kids that you guys are selecting, it's about the conversations about trades, the trades that get actualized. Yeah. Is it more, essentially what I'm asking is it more important than trade deadline day?
It is, yeah. I mean, you're building any team's built through the draft. I mean, that's pretty clear now. At the same time, at the deadline, you can make some moves to set yourself up and supplement your team and accrue some draft picks and some futures and things like that. So, I think in order of importance, certainly the draft. Yeah, that's where you can, like you said, change a franchise. And if the higher you're picking, the better chance you have to do that. And that's why luck plays a role. But you draft them, and then there is still a development path for them to get to the NHL and become the players that they can become. So you hope to get a little lucky in that regard too. Injuries and things of that nature can occur, and they're still so young and underdeveloped. So we think we're going to get a great player at 5 that can be a franchise changer.
Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
I just want to talk about the development part of it for a little bit. How much has that evolved, even in the short time you've been on the job?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like, I think even a couple of years ago when I got involved, staffs were usually 1, maybe 2 people. Now you can have staffs, development staffs, 5, 6, 7 people, ranging from sports psychologists to nutritionists to, skills coach, to skating coach. So, these guys are so young, you want to mold them and you want to help them get to that next level. And again, you draft them and that's the starting point, but where they go from there, it's a long way for a lot of these kids, especially the mid to late rounders, and you can make a lot of hay by having a great development pipeline.
Yeah, I find that's one area where teams can really get a leg up because it's outside of the salary cap. So now you can go and spend relatively inexpensive dollars when it comes to player procurement on people on the support staff. And I just think that's such an area that's, even in the last couple of years, has developed so much. I mean, you talk about nutrition and the ability to, FaceTime a kid, hey, what are you doing? Yeah, let's show you this skill. I want you to take this skill on the ice. Like, that's an amazing part of it to me, and I'm glad to see ownership is moving in a direction to spend the dollars there because, we draft players that we all think are going to play.
Yeah. Right.
But literally, and as you say, if you can get 4th, 5th, 6th rounders, even 2 or 3 years down the road to play for, it's a huge asset to the organization.
Yeah, the difference between a good draft and a bad draft can be a single player. So we firmly believe that we can influence that and get an extra player through a development process. And for us, a big thing that we've done the last few years now is in Tucson. And we obviously bought our own team, so we control the team and the staff and the culture, philosophy, and how we want to play. And we had a great year there. A lot of our young players, I think every single one of our players got better. And again, if through that process we can procure one more player, it's invaluable.
Curious about winning, if I can use that phrase, the draft. Your first round pick should play in the NHL.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
What round do you say we had a successful draft? If you get your second rounder in the NHL, your third rounder in the NHL, how many players do you need to put in the NHL to say that was a successful draft for us?
Yeah, I mean, we view it a bit differently, not just in putting players in the NHL, because where we're at as an organization, we need difference makers.
Right.
So we're looking for high ceiling guys that can make an impact, and like I said, be those 10, 15-year guys. But we've had some drafts in the last couple of years now where there are multiple players. Some of them we feel are going to be high ceiling guys. Mm-hmm. And just when you see the league trending so young too, you can get some players mid-late rounders that can play big roles and important roles because of kind of the distribution of minutes and the intensity and quickness of the games now. You need those young legs at the bottom of your lineup. So you need to hit across the draft, and,
Yeah.
and just hitting on your first pick and then not hitting is not going to be a recipe for success. And obviously, then just having a bunch of guys that are safe picks and plays is also not successful in our minds.
That's an excellent point. I wanted to get there. The nature, what's the old John Tortorella, safe as death, and going back to 2004 on that run. How risky do you want to be come draft time?
Yeah. I think that's the key question when formulating a draft philosophy. I think we talk a lot about high floors and high ceilings, and ultimately the best player that you could pick is a high floor, high ceiling guy. We felt like that was the case with Clayton Keller.
Yep.
We felt confident. Same with Jacob Chikrin. We felt high floor, high ceiling. So if you can manage risk, obviously that's the best case scenario. Now sometimes you get to a part of the draft, or you get to a pick, and that's not the case, and you have to make a trade-off. How you quantify that trade-off, how you evaluate it, what's your philosophy for dealing with it, and ultimately what rules the day is really, in my mind, the art and the science of it.
What about the skating part of it? That's Jeff and I have talked a little bit about that, and I remember in John Tavares' draft, yes, he was an exceptional player. He'd been seen an extra year, but guys are saying, we're a little bit worried about his skating. But when it comes to skating these days, and I brought up the point of Braden Point, who talked to some Tampa guys yesterday and said he went from an average skater to being a really good NHL skater. Where do you find that, and how important is that to your organization? And do you truly believe that a player who's drafted at this age can drastically improve in that area?
Yeah, I think what I've believed and have found is that the term skating is a very ambiguous kind of high-level term, and when you're talking about what translates, what doesn't translate, what's improvable, what's very difficult to improve, really you're talking about kind of the variables within a skating style and players skating. So what we've really tried to do the last number of years is try to quantify what are the different variables and try to track and find out which ones can we manipulate and influence and improve, and which ones are extremely difficult. And that's still an ongoing process. We think skating is becoming a more and more important part of the game. Obviously, we want to be a team that plays fast and plays with the puck, and in order to do that now, you need to be able to skate. So again, it's one of those things where we have some hypotheses, we have some things that we're working through. We've got a guy that we believe has a real competitive advantage in analyzing skating and working through that process of improving it. So it's become more and more important as we go.
Can any of this stuff that we're watching in front of us right now be predictive in that area for you?
Yeah, I think it's certainly it's certainly a part of our decision-making process in terms of our beliefs on their ability to improve skating. I think, again, we've watched these players all year. We know which players we have concerns with skating, which players we maybe don't. And then this can kind of lend some information to try and fill out that picture for us. But at the same time, it is a bit different too.
The Arizona Coyotes this year, John, the tale of two teams, struggling out of the start, and then by the end, goaltending is certainly a big part of that. We saw a much different Arizona Coyotes team. In your mind, which is closer to the real squad, the one we saw at the beginning or the one we saw at the end?
Oh, well, I certainly hope it's the one closer to the end. Again, I think, goaltending with a young group is obviously a key thing. And not only do we lose our starter, our backups weren't able to get the job done when they were in there. So, we combined out a lot of things. A coaching staff that's trying to implement a new system, a lot of young players, some first years, some second, third year that are finding their way still. So what I found is that once things kind of got stabilized, once the players understood what we were trying to do systematically, and then once our obviously goaltending stabilized, that we were able to really settle in and kind of play the way we wanted to
Am
play.
I oversimplifying it just by saying, I believe the old, show me a good goalie, I'll show you a good coach. Am I just oversimplifying and saying, listen, when you have the goalie, everything tends to fall into place?
Yeah, I think we can kind of isolate the goaltending, though, and just look at our team fundamentally, and we did improve, first half to second half.
Yeah.
My view of it is we're probably closer to the second half. Is that good enough, or is that what we're trying to be? No, we want to be a lot better. So we got to continue to improve, continue to make moves, and our young players hopefully will continue to get better as we go. Not just on their own, but we're going to spend a lot of resources and time helping them out. So, I think that the group took a big step, and we need another big step next year.
For sure.
You brought up a good point, goaltending. Can you enlighten us somewhat on your philosophy of drafting a goaltender? It's got to be the toughest part of the job.
Yeah, and most important position. You know, our view of it is, again, just looking at it as a portfolio. They're high-risk guys. There's a lot of variance. Where they're picked, they come in all areas of the draft. So it's been a long time since we spent a high pick. You know, I don't foresee us spending a high pick on a goalie in the near future. But
I'm always of that ilk.
You know, when I came in, we didn't have a great goalie pipeline. Now we've got kind of top to bottom, whether it's guys that are in the NHL, guys in the American League, guys coming up through the system, drafted players. You know, we feel like we've got a stock pipeline, and we're going to hope to hit on a few of those guys. And the nice part is you only need one. Yeah. And then hopefully you could fill a backup in with free agency or trade. Yeah. But they're difficult, really difficult.
Do you, from your conversations, do you expect draft day to be busy by way of trades?
Yeah, it certainly sounds like there's a lot of discussions ongoing. I know for myself, compared to previous years, a lot more active early on.
Yeah.
Setting the table for a lot of things, but nothing really happens until the draft. So
right.
Sometimes there's noise and nothing happens, and sometimes it's quiet and there's a lot that happens. But there's been a lot of discussion. I think everyone understands the parity of the league, and that you know, the difference between being out of the playoffs and in the playoffs to winning is so tight.
We, Sam and I were talking yesterday and a little bit on the program here today about the nature of the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
And stylistically, how they play, and such a joy as a fan to watch how they play. Any lessons in that? Like, what are you able to look at Vegas and say, you know what, we need to do some of what they're doing?
Yeah.
Is there anything there?
It's interesting. Like I keep telling our guys here, when our start of our season, we're up 4-1 in Anaheim. End up losing 5-4 late in regulation. We come home, we got Vegas on a back-to-back. Our home opener, we're up 1-0 late. They score, and they win in overtime. And we're thinking, this is an expansion team. We got to beat them. Then we go to Vegas for our third game, and that was their inaugural game.
Yeah.
And we were putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. We felt we could be a competitive team, but we got to beat the expansion team to be there. And it was, I think I ended up 6-2 or 7-2. And what's the most unique part about their team, I find, is, again, it was whatever it was, 6-2, and we couldn't touch the puck. I mean, they play a lead like it's a tie or they're down, which is amazing. You know, like to be able to instill that mentality and get players to buy in and not just cave in and be simple is pretty impressive. So, you know, I take a lot of stuff from that, but I guess being a part of that first game, you felt the emotion, you felt the interconnectedness between the city and the players and the coaching staff, and you know, I just think that chemistry and those players as a group, you know, on paper don't look like they're the Stanley Cup champions, but could be ending up as the Stanley Cup champions. So you learn a lot from those guys.
And they're a lot of fun to watch. Thanks so much for spending a lot of time with us, John.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for stopping by. Best of luck with the Arizona Coyotes at the draft, and best of luck next season. There is general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, John Chaika, who joins us here live. Have a look at, boy, how much knowledge is in that brain right there, Sam Cosentino. Have a look at the legendary Scott Bowman.
Oh, yeah, he's sitting there saying, geez, this looks a lot different than it did 30 years ago, doesn't it?
It really is evolved, and it really is an evolving process, whether it's, and we talk, I mean, John, you know, ran a company called Stathletes, which is an analytics company, and that's how he helped himself get into the industry as well. And sports science now is very much at the vanguard. And in a lot of ways, you know, this is a day, you know, there are days that are for the scouts, and that's draft day. There are days for the GM specifically, and that's trade deadline day. A day like today, this is for your strength conditioning.
Yeah.
This is your fitness coach day. This is their cookie, right?
This is their deal, man. They're sitting there in the front row, all the buffed out guys. There they are again. It's packed down there, and they're checking it all out. But again, it's just you know, just more information, and the more information you have, the power to process that information.
This is an interesting player.
Yes, he is.
Johnny Tyconic plays with Penticton, the V's. He's off to North Dakota. That's where his commit is. We're seeing more players come in from the BC Hockey League. We've seen him come in from the AJHL as well. What intrigues you about this young man? It seems almost as if every season there's one And generally, it's a defenseman who comes in from that second-tier league that upsets the apple cart. Is there any chance that Tyconic, as a defenseman, can slip into the first round?
Ooh, he...
Right on the border, hey?
Right on the border. I think the issue for Johnny here is the fact that there's just so many of them available. And so that probably bumps him down just a little bit. I'd say probably mid-second would be my projection for him right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I love his game, and it's interesting we had the chance to talk about him. Yeah, all right.
Just getting the seats reconfigured here a second.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you watch him, he's really electric, but his style of play, and talking to him yesterday, basically went as his personality went the last couple of years. In that he was, he told us a 16-year-old year, he was more reserved, he was a bit of an introvert, he was going through some things personally, and he felt his game reflected that.
Yeah.
And then he sought out the help of a family friend who's also a sports psychologist in Lyle Mast, who really took his game to a new level. And it started basically with the eradication of superstitions. He'd be eating almonds and napping at the same time every day.
4 almonds a day, right? Was it 4 almonds?
Yeah, 4 almonds
No,
a
sorry,
day.
10 almonds.
10 almonds.
10 almonds a day.
Then blueberries, and he would nap at the same time, wake up at the same time, and on all these things. And right away, Lyle eradicated those things from him, so just stop messing with his head. Because you might sit there and say, oh, man, you know what? I only had 6 almonds. That's why I only, that's why I turned the puck over 12 times. Well, so as he started to eradicate those things and find out who he truly was, I think he leaned on his family a little bit more, and he started to come out of his shell and become a real extrovert.
Yep.
And his game reflects that. When you watch him play, I mean, he's a get-up-and-go guy. He is that typical new age guy. Skate the puck, support the rush, lead the rush, be that fourth forward. And he's a lot of fun to watch because he plays with energy. And you see him in a room, he commands the room with his energy, and now his play reflects that. So he's come a long way here in the last 2 years. It was great to get to talk to him. I think of all the, 30 or 40 people that we had the chance to interview over the last couple of days, probably the most gregarious.
Oh, for sure.
The most energetic, however you want to put it. It was awesome to spend some time with him. And
he was this year's version of Michael DiPietro.
Yeah.
That outgoing guy that makes you fall in love with him.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough to spend a lot of time with Mikey, previous to coming here. But he's one guy who would have jumped out at me, and I liked his game. I went and watched him at the Prospects game in Mississauga in Port Credit there, and I think it was January, and I loved his game there. He was a get-up-and-go high-energy guy, so it'll be fun. In terms of first round, don't quite think he gets there, to be perfectly honest with you.
This guy's going in the first round, maybe as high as number 2. Andrey Sveshnikov of the Barrie Colts. Coming into the season, there was a question, is it going to be Dahlin, is it going to be Sveshnikov? Dahlin wire to wire, but I mean, I don't want to call him a consolation prize, but man, if Carolina wants it, they're getting a heck of a winger in Andrey Sveshnikov.
Oh, man. It's his presence. I mean, he's got that hockey player's body. He's a good-looking dude. He's got a brother who's kind of come through all of this. He's left home. He's been in North America for a little while. His English has really improved. I love this guy. And the greatest asset for him this year was to be able to play under Dale Hawerchuk. I truly believe that. The fact that, Dale Hawerchuk, a Hall of Famer, is 500 or 600 goals in the National Hockey League, and a guy who always played, good up-tempo style of game. But he's an awesome guy to spend time with because he's probably one of the nicest people you ever meet. I know RJ and I, whenever we go to Barrie and do games, we look forward to our meeting with Dale, and we both walk out of there saying, oh my gosh, we just spent a half hour with this Hall of Famer, who might be the nicest person in the entire world, So it's pretty cool. But getting to play for Dale, I think, has really helped him. Just some of the subtleties of the offensive game, where to be in the ice, neutral zone, that sort of thing. And Andrey's a real coachable guy. He wants to be better. He wants to be a pro. And Dale says, we got to go and pull him out of the gym.
Yeah.
He's crazy. He won't take time off. We got to pull him out of the gym. So it's been a real nice marriage there, and I think you're looking at a guy who you just look at him. He looks like a franchise guy.
Yeah,
and he's like a movie star. This guy.
He's walking into the NHL next year. Like Barry's seen the last of Andrey Sveshnikov. 72 points in 44 games. An injury to kick off the season.
Yep.
And it's to get the World Junior Championships as well. Valery Bragin, the head coach of Team Russia, didn't exactly make sure that Sveshnikov got the most ice time?
Well, I was actually sitting almost exactly where we're sitting now, and I remember watching the game against Sweden, the game against Switzerland, and I'm saying to myself, when him and Klim Kostin, who were on the same line for a good portion of it, got out together, they created chances every time. And Valerie Bragin just doesn't like his younger guys, so they didn't get out there nearly as much as I figure they should have.
Right.
But by the same token, he did take a younger player on his team, which he traditionally doesn't really do that.
Yeah.
But he showed and burst in that game that he was able to handle a lighter workload and still get a lot out of that workload. That's a hard thing for top players at this level, because on their teams, being the best guys, they play the most minutes, they play the most high leverage situations. So now you're asking a guy in international competition to scale back his minutes.
Yeah.
Yet for Andrey, he was still able to bring all those same things to the table. I think that was really good adaptability on his part, and I think something that scouts take notice of.
Have a look at Jet Wu here. He's in some ways Sam Cosentino. Plays with the Moose Jaw Warriors. Tim Hunter's the head coach there, Western Hockey League. In some ways, he's almost a throwback defenseman.
Yep.
This guy loves the big hit. This guy loves when it's physical. This guy loves when it gets rough and tough. He's not going to give you the most offense. If that's what you're looking for, Jet Wu is not your guy. But if you want, and I've sort of likened him in some regards to a Braden McNabb style of player who will step up because there's so few guys in the game that do that anymore. What is attractive to you about Jet Wu of the Moose Jaw Warriors?
Personality sticks out right away. Real confident young man, but a guy who's been injury prone here over the last couple of years. And at the end of the day, the issue with Jet Wu is, you know you're going to get a character and a class person. Where do you see him fitting? What do you think that he can do? What dynamic element of his game is going to make him a difference maker at the National Hockey League? And I truly believe that scouts are still trying to figure that out, what that element is going to be. There's a lot of guys that if you look and, okay, let's say Philip Zadina, what's that element that sticks out? Shooting, goal scoring.
Oh,
you look at Oliver Wahlstrom, what's the element? The shooting, the goal scoring.
Yep.
You look at Andrey Sveshnikov, what's that one element that sticks out? Well, he's got size and speed. You look at Dahlin, what's that one element that sticks out? Well, it's the offensive capabilities amongst a host of other things.
Yep.
So now I'm looking at Jet Wu and I'm saying, what is that one element in his game that sticks out? So it might be the physical play and the open ice hits and the body checking, but how much is that a part of the lexicon these days? How much is that a part of the game these days? Still needed, still required. Where do you value that in terms of where you draft him? And is that his best asset, or is there some things there that can get unearthed?
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking at a guy who's going to step in, he's going to do whatever's asked of him. He's going to be a model citizen for you. So those things really play into his favor. But at the end of the day, for me, what is Jet Wu going to be at the next level is the big question that scouts have been asking about him all year.
For sure. And he is, his father played in the Western Hockey League as well, played with Swift Current Broncos, Victoria Royals as well. Do you find that players whose fathers have played at a high level have an advantage over other kids in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, for sure, because you're around it. You know what it's all about. So let me take Matthew Tkachuk as a great example of that. I mean, you know, some people are worried, is he going to be able to skate at the next level? He's got such a good head for the game, Matthew. And when you watch him play, he's such a high competitor, high-level competitor. So when he stepped into the National Hockey League, he wasn't wowed by, where do I walk into the dressing room? What's the dressing room dynamic all about? Do I step on the logo in the middle of the room? How often do I go in the trainer's room? All of these things that people who haven't been around it have to kind of learn and fight their way through. And there are a lot of things to that. But when you've grown up around it, you're not fazed by it. That's one thing that you can eradicate from your mind that you don't have to worry about. And that's the true edge that I find that those guys have. The other part of it is on ice. They think it so well because they've been watching that high level and have been close to it their entire lives. So you can't help but glean. You think about how smart kids are. I think about my own kids, 3 and 5 years old. I mean, they wow me every day with some of the stuff that they're able to do. You have young kids. Some of the stuff they say, they do, they process. It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So think about as a young kid being exposed to that all the time. It's by osmosis, it's just sinking in. So that's another edge where you know, players, kids, I think have an advantage.
Yeah, certainly true. Whether it's, you know, even just the protocols of, okay, who gets off the bus first? Who checks in at the hotel first?
All these little things, right?
What do I do? Those guys, I mean, you know, Louis DeBrusque is with us, and you know this, and Jake walks into the NHL, and he knows all that.
Yeah.
You know, Brady Tkachuk, and we'll dovetail and talk about him now for a little bit. You know, Brady Tkachuk joins the NHL maybe as early as next year, and because of A, dad, B, brother, he knows it all.
Yeah.
All that part of being a professional is done.
So what do you focus on?
Your game.
Your game.
Yeah. Where's Brady Tkachuk's game for you?
He's all over. He's a little bit of everything, and I love the way that Bob Motzko used him at the World Juniors. He was out there killing penalties. He was out there in the final minute, either protecting or trying to get a goal, protecting the lead or trying to get a goal. He had a physical edge to him. He likes to chirp. He gets under the opponent's skin. He is really so much like his brother in so many ways.
Yeah.
He's probably bigger, faster, stronger, maybe not quite the same hockey IQ as his brother. But I think he steps in and plays next year.
I think he's a better player than his brother?
Ooh.
Matthew's a heart and soul of that Calgary Flames team already.
Yeah,
Sam.
so he's so for me, Brady is slightly more dynamic of a player, and Matthew is more of a thought thinker type of player who's more kind of that old school type of player.
Have a look here at, we'll get back to Brady Tkachuk here in a couple of seconds. Notable Russians that have gone through the CHL route. You know, once upon a time it was, you went right from Russia to the NHL, and that was it. And now, more so than ever, whether it's Kucherov, whether it's Zadorov, whether it's Yakupov, Provorov, who's been had a great season with the Philadelphia Flyers, Mikhail Sergachev, we saw last year with the Windsor Spitfires.
Yeah.
The trade for John Drouin, and he walks right into that Tampa Bay Lightning lineup this season, 13, 14 minutes a night. I mean, a lot more are, saying, are looking at it like this, Sam. They're saying, if we're going to play in the NHL, we want to get acclimatized to North America as quickly as possible. We are going to go early. We are going to, get there, work on language skills, learn the culture, learn all the things that you talk about, and be in a mini-pro environment that the CHL provides.
And playing in a small barn, too. That's another key element to it, too. And not to say I told you so about Sergachev, but I told you so. Anyway, look at Kucherov at 58th. How's that?
Steal.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Coming out of the queue.
Yeah, but you know what, Jeff? And there was a while there where teams weren't going down that road. When the KHL first started to come into prominence, everyone was worried about drafting Russian players because it provided such a great second option to them that if you weren't going to put those players in the National Hockey League right away, they'd go home and make the big dollars playing in the KHL. So that has slightly changed a little bit. The KHL has had its challenges on occasion. Still, obviously, a really good league and a really good option for Russian-born players. But ultimately, they want to play in the best league in the world. And that's why we're starting to see that influx come back. Maybe the last 3 or 4 years where there weren't a lot of Russian players in the Canadian Hockey League, let's say 5 years ago, they're starting to come back now.
Is there still a Russian chill around the draft?
Yes, no doubt. No doubt. Yep.
That teams are reluctant, shy about drafting. I mean, I can think of one squad specifically that just wants nothing to do with Russians in the first round because they've been through it in their mind. So that still is very much a thing?
No question. No question it exists. Now, again, you have to have confidence in your group. You have to have confidence in your support group that when you get that player over here that he feels comfortable in his environment. And not all teams are able to provide that. And other teams simply just don't want to deal with the constant threat of a player leaving because he's not getting his ice time, because he's not getting his power play, because he has to play in the American Hockey League. I mean, Vegas, who's done just about every single thing you can do right this year, that's the one maybe blip in the radar, if you want to call that. Was it Shipachev or that started the year and there was
got the big contract,
all those sorts of things.
Down to the Chicago Wolves, and Rocky Thompson got scratched there and was out.
And what happened? And where was his options?
KHL, right back.
So, that threat always exists, but you have to have confidence in the type of player you're getting and the support group that you have in your organization to allow that player to thrive in your own environment. But no question, Jeff, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, and you just told us
there's one team that I spoke to.
That Russian chill, as you refer to it as, is definitely present.
Who's the most interesting team for you in the first round? I mean, the Rangers hold 3 picks. Detroit's
Yeah.
loaded up. Like, Montreal's got a high pick. Are they looking to rebuild? Are they looking to trade the pick for established players? Certainly Buffalo is, the top dog with the first pick overall. Carolina, where the owner has pretty much said, if your name isn't Sebastian Aho or Netskach, you could be available by way of trade. Who's the most intriguing team for you in the first round, Sammy?
Jeff, I think there's a number of stories here. It starts with Carolina. Who's making that decision? Don Waddell is the guy who's been named the general manager. How much will he have in terms of pure decision-making power? So that's an unbelievable story right there. Montreal, Marc Bergevin. A lot of talk last year about, hey, you had your plan, you had the time to implement your plan hasn't quite worked out. Where is Montreal with him right now? Then you look at the Ottawa Senators, and the stuff that Alfredson has come out recently and started saying, the fact that they're about to embark on a project to get into a new building, the fact that 2 years ago they were knocking on Stanley Cup's door, and last year not so much. And then you think about what the draft pick that they owe to Colorado still. They're not going to give them that one
next year. And if they're worse, and in the lottery, that might be Jack Hughes first overall.
Right.
Now, Ottawa, by the
Scary.
way, this from Elliot Friedman. We talked about this on the podcast last couple of weeks. Ottawa is interested in seeing if they can get that stipulation, if they can give Colorado something to remove that stipulation of giving them the first round pick next year. That has to be sizable if you're Colorado.
You know how hard it was to negotiate that 3-way deal with Matt Duchene and Kyle Turris? That was already a difficult proposition. I think Joe Sakic came away like a bandit. To me, that's the best trade that's ever been made in the NHL in the salary cap era. I truly, truly believe that. So if you're going to go back to him and try and ask for something different or for that to change, I just don't see that happening whatsoever. I don't think Joe Sakic would allow that to happen, and it would have to be something. You'd have to sit there and say to yourself, at the very least, we project this to be a top 15 pick.
Right.
Let's just assume that Ottawa finishes in the top half of the league.
Right.
Top 15 next year is going to be a pretty darn good pick. I wouldn't give it up. I'll tell you that right now. I wouldn't give it up. So again, another interesting story there. The Detroit Red Wings in the long run of playoffs. The Vancouver Canucks continuously go into the NHL Draft lottery and end up kind of in the same spot. You can literally go through here. The Chicago Blackhawks, they're looking around saying, we haven't been here in a long, long time either.
Yeah.
The Rangers with their 3 picks. It goes on and on. The Oilers now, pressure off from getting the number 1 pick all the time. Now they slide back here a little bit. So I just see so many different storylines. The New York Islanders, Lou Lamoriello aboard. Garth Snow, who's making the pick? How quickly are you able to get into an organization and affect draft day? Can Lou even have that kind of impact? Because we're just, literally a month out from when he was hired to the draft. So can he even have an impact in that regard? There are so many good storylines when it comes to the various National Hockey League teams this year. I don't know if I can pick one. I don't know if I can pick one.
Do you think Edmonton is married to that pick, or do you think it's in play?
Where are they, 10?
Edmonton is...
Where are they here? Yeah, I'd have to... where are they? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... Yeah, 10.
10.
So they're at 10. Wow. Like,
because they need players now. They're not in the green banana business anymore.
Yeah, no, they gotta get some guys. Yeah, no doubt about it. Then you'd have to think at that point, with all the defensemen that are available, that's still an area that I think they need to address. And so at that point, that's probably what you're looking at. And at number 10, who's going to be around? Maybe Boquist slips down there. I don't think Bouchard and Dobson will be available to him then. But Boquist might be a guy who ends up there for him. And for someone who was projected top 6, 7 all year long, it might be a good pick there for Edmonton.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. There's a couple of other players. You mentioned Barrett Hayton a little while ago, Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. What do you think of Rasmus Sandin, defenseman who comes in this year?
Wow.
There was, Connor Timmins goes down with the injury. Rasmus Sandin, the ice time is up, and they continue their winning streak. Drew Bannister doing a great job there. What are your thoughts? We talked about Hayton. What are your thoughts on Rasmus?
Wow. The thing for me is my most recent viewings of Hayton, of course, I think he's all the way through. He's kind of been the same guy. But for Sandin, seeing him late in the playoffs, he looked like a smaller D-man. He looked like a guy that was tired, that was getting banged, especially in the Hamilton series, in the Ontario Hockey League Championship between Sault Ste. Marie and Hamilton. I noticed the physical wear and tear and constantly dumping into his end of the ice and getting in on him hard in the forecheck. I think it took its toll on him. And I think it opened up some eyes there that in terms of his own zone and defending and that sort of thing, I think it opened up some eyes. Is he a first-round pick? He's going to be right on the edge of town. That's how I feel about Rasmus, All
right, and the way that he got to the CHL is interesting as well, and it involved text messages with the aforementioned Barrett Hayton. Here's Rob Falls with the story of how Rasmus Sandin came to be a Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound.
In 2017, Rasmus Sandin had just started playing professional hockey in the Swedish Hockey League.
I started off in the Pro League in Sweden this year, and I've watched a couple games and following the league for a little time now, for a couple years.
He was considering coming to North America to join the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in the Ontario Hockey League.
Playing against him at U18 and U17 the year before, he was a great player, and I knew he'd be a great fit for our team and really help our team a lot. So just kind of contacting him and kind of trying to persuade him to come over.
During this process, a message popped up on his cell phone from his now good friend and teammate, Barrett Hayton.
I did a bit of the undercover work to try to persuade him to get over here.
I was talking to Barrett Hayton a little bit before there, and before I made my decision coming over, so he's helped me a lot too. I mean, it's perfect to have a couple guys that you actually recognize when you come into the team, so it's been perfect.
Now the two Greyhounds are both projected to go in the first round of the 2018 NHL Entry Draft in Dallas this June.
In terms of major risers, I'd have to say two guys from Sault Ste. Marie, Barrett Hayton and Rasmus Sandin, who came over in October, who was partnered with Rasmus Dahlin, going back to the under 18s together. So those two guys are pretty high risers.
Sandin trying to get it to Hayton quickly. The attack on a change. Hayton has it going in with a shot. Scores! Barrett Hayton! What a great heads-up play to get him the puck. Here's Sandin with the puck. Sandin to Hayton. Hayton trying to get it back to Sandin. Does with a shot. He scores! Great give and go there.
I think it worked out well, and obviously he helped our team a lot, and he's a great player.
It looks like a completely different hockey over here, and that's been a thing that I've always wanted to do, come overseas and play hockey. So I felt that I got the opportunity now to come over, and I felt that I would be stupid if I don't take it. So yeah, and I'm happy with my choice so far.
Today, technology can be everything in starting friendships. The two Greyhounds found that out in the fall of 2017, who now have a lifelong friendship that started across the world.
Jeff Merrick alongside Sam Cosentino.
Were you worried about me?
Well, no, I saw you were going to get
me down. I got to get a little something to drink.
30 seconds. Sammy's getting a coffee. We're all good. Sam Cosentino returns. Quick thought on Barrett Hayton. I want to transition here and talk about Ryan Merkley, who's a real interesting player and a real interesting story. But I want to put you a final couple of touches on Barrett Hayton. What do you like about this kid?
The one thing that impressed me throughout the course of the year is that I didn't realize how good his hands were. His hands are awesome.
Yeah.
That's one thing that emerged for me with more viewings of him.
Lacrosse background, right?
Lacrosse background. So the hands are awesome. So really good shooter, heavy shot, excellent hands in tight, really responsible. Love the kid. We had the chance to sit down with him in January there at the Sherwin-Williams Top Prospects game, and I was really impressed by the young man. And you know what? Here's a really interesting piece about this whole thing. Let's go back to Sault Ste. Marie Saginaw round 1, 6-0. Keegan Howdeshell scores a lacrosse-style goal, makes it 7-0. Barrett Hayton then goes between the legs, tucks it in, short side on Evan Cormier, makes it 8-0.
Yeah.
Well, Don Cherry went on and talked about that and how he didn't really appreciate that. And I think that had an impact on their group. And I wondered how, as guys who work in the same company, we'd be received going back to talk to the Sault Ste. Marie guys about that. And it was, not going to lie, it was a bit of a challenge at first. And they were kind of looking at, like, how could you guys do that? These guys are kids. You know, these were the only options that they had in terms of trying to score in that situation.
Yep.
We weren't trying to show them up. Saginaw's a team who had a massive comeback against Sarnia earlier in the year where they scored 5 or 6 in the third period to beat the Sting. You know, those were all necessary things. And then there was the other side that said, well, it was already 6-0. It was, third period. Looks like you're showing the opposition up, and that's the approach that Don took with it. So, again, getting back and talking to Barrett about that, I wanted to ask him, like, how did that make you feel? Or, what did you think about that? And I really liked the way he handled it and said, you know what, it was part of it. We won the game. We won the series. That was a part of it. There's, these little bit of adversities and controversies you have to go through. But really, at the end of the day, it was, you could tell it had some sort of impact on him. But I just I love the way he responded. So he's an awesome kid. He's a really good player. I think it started for me at the Ivan Holinka when he was basically an afterthought as the 13th forward, moved his way up the lineup and proved that he could be versatile in many situations, and that is another huge asset of Barrett's.
Okay, want to get to Ryan Merkley. Every year there's one player that really galvanizes opinion. Never denying the skill, but there are some question marks, outside of the game about Ryan Merkley. We saw this with players like Josh Hosang, for example. The one player you look at and you say to yourself, kid's got top 10 skill, going away, no doubt. Offensively, top 10 skill, going away. Where are you at on Ryan Merkley? Defenseman, Guelph Storm.
Ooh, baby. Well, you know what? We stopped him in the hallway Thursday, and he had a different disposition than I remember seeing in Guelph in January.
Okay.
And I like that. I really like that about him. He had a smile on his face. Body language was better. Still not great, but better. And was more open, was more candid. So I like that. In terms of his skill, top 10 all day, every day. He does things on the ice that literally there are a lot of players, even in this draft class with all the really good defensemen in the first round, that he can do that others can't. And I think about I think it was the game-winning goal, it might have been the 3-1 goal, Canada versus Sweden, under 18s. He's moving towards the far wall, still on a power play, but still an unbelievable play. He's moving towards the far wall and throws basically a no-look pass kind of back behind him.
Right.
And that ends up leading to it was the game-winning goal against Sweden. I believe it was the game-winning goal. And I looked at that and I'm like, wow, that is something that nobody can do, really. So he has that type of game-breaking and game-changing ability. But we had John Chayka here a short time ago and asked him about the gap between skill and character. And that gap's closing. Mm-hmm. So that's the area when it comes to Ryan Merkley that I think earlier in the year there were literally teams that had completely taken him off their list. Done. Mm-hmm. Out. No chance. Doesn't matter when. If he's available in the 6th round, forget it. Not touching him, not taking him.
Right.
I hope that what I saw in the hallway on Thursday is indicative of what this guy is going forward. And you're going to look at that player, and the one thing that you're going to have to do as an organization is really, really support that player. Mm-hmm. Listen, at 16, 17, 18 years old, I was maybe as immature as anybody.
Sure.
It took you a while to come into your own, to be an adult, to do those sorts of things. So I think that's kind of where Ryan is at.
Right.
I think he's just an immature young man.
See, we'll use the top prospects game as an example.
Yeah.
Evan Bouchard was outstanding. Philip Zadina was outstanding. I thought Ryan Merkley was right there with him. As far as creating, as far as vision, as far as playmaking goes, I thought Ryan Merkley did as good a job as those other guys who got all the headlines, Zadina and Bouchard. I thought Merkley was right there with him.
So what about your due diligence in terms of the stuff that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, we all hear the same thing about Ryan Merkley. Offensively gifted, has challenges defensively, challenges in his own zone. And, we've all heard, going back to when he played with the Junior Canadians to the GTHL, how much of a team guy is Ryan Merkley. And interestingly enough, when we talked to him at Top Prospects game in Guelph earlier on this year, and we asked, what's the one thing that people have wrong about you? Give you a chance to have your say here. The first thing out of his mouth, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, was that he said, well, there's a myth that my teammates don't like me, and that's not true, and was guarded and was defensive about it. Now, I'm not in the Guelph Storm dressing room, so I don't know what the reality is or what the truth is. But from the people that you talk to consistently, they say the same thing. I remember talking to one team. This would have been around, I think it was right around December. And I said, where are you guys at on Ryan Merkley? And the general manager said to me, we hope someone else makes the decision before it's our turn to pick, because we don't want to be in that spot to have that decision. Because to your point, the skill set is so enticing.
Oh, man.
It's so appealing for Ryan Merkley.
If I were in Ryan's camp, the number one suggestion I'd make, I'd say go talk to Johnny Tyconic. Go talk to Johnny.
Okay.
With knowing what we now know about him. And there's a guy who literally changed his outlook on life within the course of a year by talking to a sports psychologist.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, I can't say I'm not there all the time. I can only go by what I've heard, and I know the people that I've talked to have done their due diligence.
Yep.
I think this guy is absolutely a perfect candidate to help him mature quicker and in the right way to sit down with a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
I truly, truly believe that. And I hope that Ryan and his family don't find that critical in any way, shape, or form. There is no shame in doing that. The greatest athletes in the world, you think about Braden Holtby, swears by it.
Yep.
Throwing the water in the air and watching every single drop in order
Visualization.
So there's no shame in that. But I think, and this is as honest as I can put it when it comes to Ryan, I just think he's an immature young man who could really benefit from some of the support outside the game, and a sports psychologist would be a great place to start. I truly believe that.
Excellent point. Okay, so and by the way, if you want to see some of Ryan Merkley's skill set, go to YouTube and type in Ryan Merkley, Guelph versus Kingston Teddy Bear toss goal.
Yeah,
it is one of the most dynamic goals you will ever see, junior hockey or otherwise. Let's learn a little bit more. This is a feature on Ryan Merkley of the Guelph Storm. There's already highlights out there. You can watch them all on YouTube. Just type in Ryan Merkley.
Rolls back to Merkley. Merkley spinning away from a check there. Continues on, and some good stick handling work. Look at Merkley, high slot, scores! Ryan Merkley! Beauty goal! And the Teddy Bears reign here in Guelph.
How many times have you watched your video against the Kingston Frontenacs?
I guess the Teddy Bear goal from last year. Yeah, I've seen it quite a bit, especially a few weeks past that, right? You can always see it come up.
Whenever anyone mentions your name, I mean, right away it's off to YouTube for that clip.
When you watch him play, oh my goodness, this guy is top 10 skill all day long.
Out to Merkley, high slot, creeping in, scores!
You got to shut down, obviously play that defensive side first, but nowadays you got to be that puck mover, right? You got to make that good first pass, be able to skate and join the rush, be that fourth guy in.
Does anyone have better edge work in the OHL, dare I say,
Walk
the CHL?
the line, confidence, poise, makes the dangerous play and makes that dangerous play look easy. He is a treat to watch, he really is.
The new age of the game, right? You always need that puck moving defenseman. Every team needs one of those.
Cameron Gerard, Joe Higgins just
exactly. So it's exciting, right? I guess I'm in that role, so it's pretty exciting to see.
World-class talent, there's no question about it.
He made some really slick passes and plays.
You look at the skill of Ryan Merkley, and in a lot of ways, he's a defenseman, but he can play like a forward.
And just his overall hockey IQ.
Howell scores! Nice pass by Merkley. Cross ice, it's in the back of the net.
Not to get too down on yourself, right? It's a long year. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be fans of you, and some guys aren't going to like you, right? If I'm being realistic, I don't think I'll be in the NHL next year, so.
Just based on size?
Yeah, size, body language, and I guess defensive zone coverage, right? Because I know those are the areas I got to work on. Always making sure I'm getting better in that area if I want to take the next step and play in the next level. I want to play one more year of junior next year, and hopefully the goal is to go that year, my fourth year.
So much fun to watch. He's such a dynamic player. Where does he go? We'll find out in Dallas at the NHL Draft. The first round, June 22nd. All the action begins at 6:30 Eastern. It is the NHL 2018 draft. Where does Ryan Merkley go? We know where Rasmus Dahlin is going to go. He's going to go first overall.
Yeah.
Do we know where Andrey Sveshnikov is going to go? And by the way, when he was doing the pro agility, he lost a shoe while he was running, but he's recovered and he's doing his pull-ups now. Strong kid.
It's like the golf swing. Swing out of your shoes. If he doesn't go second, I think it's a mistake.
Yeah.
Yep. He's going to come in and play right away, and he's going to have some sort of impact for your team right away. There's no part of the game that he can't excel at, and he can play it any way you want. You want to play a fast game, no problem. You want to play a power game, no problem. You want to chirp, yeah, no problem. He handles everything.
Yeah.
Size, speed. Look at how physically mature he is already.
For sure.
And there's still a little ways to go there. So he's going to make an impact right away. I honestly believe if he doesn't go second, that will be a mistake.
Right. There are some scouting services we've seen that have players like Brady Tkachuk in at number 2, some Philip Zadina. But, you've been pretty hard and fast all season long. Sveshnikov is the guy, number 2.
Yep, I truly believe. Listen, they're goal scoring. Yeah, Zadina does that.
Yep.
So does Andrey. Size. Okay, Tkachuk has that. So does Andrey. Speed. Okay, Boquist or whoever has that. Okay.
Yeah.
Andrey has that. So he takes all of the things that I think that the guys are ranked behind him already have, and combines it in one package.
You got a friend over your left shoulder, by the way.
Hi, John.
John Shannon stopping by. How you doing, Shanny?
Doing well.
Enjoying the combine. Want to pop on here for a sec? Come on, grab the mic.
It's FaceTime Live after all, isn't it?
Facebook Live, yeah. Here we are.
Come on in. Here,
No. I'm good standing. I'm good standing.
Yeah?
You're good standing?
Yeah.
Well, now, I'm curious what your takeaway is from something like this, John. Like a weekend here in Buffalo or a week-long worth of events and getting to know the prospects and watch them get put through all their physical testing. What do you take away from an event like this, John?
Well, I think most of the heavy lifting for the teams is done between Monday and yesterday.
Yeah.
It's the personal contact that the teams can have. The players, what difference they can make in their personal interviews and their discussions. I mean, some guys, it becomes more than that too. I mean, Chicago takes guys out for dinner.
Yep.
Yeah.
The guys that figure where they know they're going to fit and what number they're in, whether it's a Bouchard or a Dobson.
Yeah.
Detroit takes Dobson for dinner and then Bouchard for dinner. I mean, so I think that it's getting to know players as people more than, with all due respect to what's going on today, is more important, because every scout has seen one of these guys at least 15 times, and then like for instance, what's happening now, like San Jose's staying for 2 more days to do all their amateur meetings,
right?
And there's some teams that are taking advantage of this being a very successful event.
Sam and I were throwing this around at the top of the program, which is, there's a rink right over there.
Yeah,
there's a sheet of ice over there. Would you like to see these kids on the ice instead of in their sneakers?
You've been the inner workings of the league.
Well,
Has it come up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When the lady Jay McGuire was involved and we were doing the combine in Toronto, we had discussions, and then those were days when I had 2 hats. Not only was with the league, but I was also running the NHL Network. And I
said, you had more power than you have now?
Sammy, I have no power.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so I said, why can't we do what they do in Indianapolis at the NFL Draft?
Yeah.
Why can't we have some fun and have the guys skate? Well, there were some logistic issues because they were doing out near the airport. There wasn't a rink close by. It becomes timing. There are issues when it also comes to college players and the amount of time they can spend at the combine.
That's one element I never thought of.
So there are time limits and durations that they can only come in for. So do you want to put them on the ice? Every team has seen them on the ice.
Let me just flip this over here. Yeah.
So from that perspective, it became one where it was great. It would have been good TV. It would have created more compelling television.
Right.
But But in the end, would it have been worth the expense that, by the way, the 31 teams would have had to divvy up and pay for? And would the teams have wanted it as much? So there were lots of things. It would have been great. It would have been much more, I think, appealing and probably more interesting for
us, for us TV guys,
and even for fans.
Yeah,
even
for
for
sure.
fans. I mean, when you look again, the NFL Combine is the.
Oh yeah.
It's the standard.
Yeah.
You know, and they've set the bar high, and they've created an event now. I mean, a huge event. So from the perspective of that, you say, could we have done that? This is coming to Buffalo has been a huge positive for the Combine.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, everything is here in one spot. You know, it's funny. I've talked to Dan Marr a lot about that, guys, and the one thing he says, aside from all the logistical stuff that you talk about, that they haven't found a thirst amongst the majority of the teams to move forward in that regard, because they feel they glean so much from all their viewings throughout the course of the year that when you get a guy who's standing alone, who's skating end to end, well, what's the big deal? How does that apply to game play? I still think there's value in it. The more information you have, I think the better off you are.
Well, in the end, actually, I was just talking with a couple of guys down at the end, and the question came is, if you were a coach in the league still, the one guy was asked, what do you get out of this Combine? And he said, I don't get very much, because I mean, how does he think on the ice?
Right.
What does he do on the ice? And so is that the next step, is a cognitive test for the ability to show puck sense and reaction time, and is there that's going that will probably be the next phase that we talk about.
I want to bring Rasmus Dahlin here on the set in a couple of seconds.
I want to get more important than I am.
He's all the talk here in Buffalo. Even coming over the border guard that I was talking to, say, how good is this Swedish kid? What does he mean, before you bring him on, what does Rasmus Dahlin mean to this market here in Buffalo?
Well, I think he's probably, in the end, and my gut tells me, and actually Sam and I had a bit of this discussion last night, I think in the end he'll be more important than Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
I think when you get a puck-moving defenseman and when you get somebody like that, the challenge for the Buffalo Sabres is to put him in an environment that he has every opportunity to succeed.
Right.
So where is that veteran defenseman to be on the blue line that can actually help Dahlin understand not just the game, but when you go to Tops to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
When you Tops. I just had to mention something local, but I mean, life. I mean, people leave the rink, you know, and people have lives.
Oh yeah.
And how are they managed now? Yeah. And he's still going to be 18 years old.
I know.
I shudder to think what Jeff Merrick and Sam Cosentino at 18, if they were given 7 figures.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Be a bad decision, John.
So I rest my case.
Be a bad decision.
We talked about bar speed already today.
Well, that's a different type of bar speed.
Right.
Exactly.
We worked on that. Johnny, thanks so much for
good seeing you, boys.
There's our pal from Sportsnet, John Shannon. Rasmus Dahlin is going to be dropping by here. Hello, Rasmus. Good to see you. Good to see you. How are you today?
It's good to see you.
Rasmus Dahlin. So, we were talking about this a couple of moments ago. What do you mean to this marketplace? What will it mean to you to get selected first overall? Has that always been a goal of yours, something you thought about? And if so, at what point in your life did you say to yourself, I want to play in the NHL, I want to be first overall?
Yeah, I can't say it's been a goal, but it's been a dream for me, actually. So, if that's happened, I don't know what to expect, but I'm going to be so glad and proud and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited.
We were asking the question amongst Jeff and I, why is Rasmus here? We know he's going first overall, and I thought I provided a good answer, but I want to ask you that question. What brings you here?
I want to meet all the teams and just show who I am, and then they have to decide who they want to pick.
Is there a drive for you to be competitive and to essentially beat the other guys who are here in some of these events?
Probably not. I know that some of the guys are much stronger than me.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing 100%, and that's all I can do.
What goes through your mind when you hear people say, "Oh, he's the next Erik Karlsson. He's a combination of Karlsson and Hedman. This guy's the best Swedish prospect to ever come through the draft." When you hear praise like that, when you hear things like that about you and about your game, what do you think?
Of course, it's so fun to hear, but I think. I'm just 18 years old, so it's a long way till the end. So I have to work even harder in the future. So of course it's so fun to hear, but I have to work hard.
I'm so impressed. We spent some time yesterday walking around, and autograph seekers, people wanting to take pictures. 18 years old. I mean, you handle it like a pro. I have never met your parents before. I know Alex Blair, who's our producer, went to Sweden and filmed some stuff in the summertime. But Martin and Wasa, is that how you pronounce your mother?
Yeah, Åsa.
Åsa, okay?
Yeah.
Åsa.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done such a good job raising a fine young man. The way you handled it was like a pro. I'm really impressed. So tell us a little bit about your parents and your upbringing and you know how you want to make them proud here with what's about to happen here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, actually we're just a regular family that love each other, and it's kind of bonus that I'm here and all that kind of stuff. But of course they're proud and all that kind of stuff. But we all love each other.
Was it always hockey for you, 12 months of the year, or other sports, other interests, or was it just all hockey?
Yeah, of course. If you grown up in Sweden, it's like you have to play soccer.
Yep.
But it's always been 100% hockey, but a little bit soccer.
Yeah, we always this good. Like we always, top of your team, top in the league.
Probably. I don't think so. I used to play with older guys, so I always compete with all the older guys, but I can't say I was top in the team.
Used to be a forward. When did you change?
About 13 years old or something.
And what was the story behind that?
I love to take responsibility to the team. You can do that more as a D than you can do as a forward, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm so impressed. It seems like there's so much of the forward still in you. I love watching the highlights and you dipping and dazzling through the offensive zone. How much do you enjoy the chance that when you're playing defense that you can show off some of those forward skills?
Yeah, that's the best thing that you can do. So I can't say I'm gonna stop with it.
Don't stop.
Oh, yeah. We'll see what's happening in the future.
You a big hat guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. You like your hats?
Yeah.
Your brother too, Felix?
No, he's more hair guy. I think.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love it.
Unearthing the Nuggets before the NHL Draft. Tell us a little bit about the Combine here. Did you train at all for these types of events? Like, is this the things that we're seeing here this morning? Are these things that you've worked on? Oh, I got to work on my bench press. We were joking about bar speed and how fast you can get it up, and wind gate and all that kind of. Did you work on that before the Combine?
I can't say I'm specifically worked on these things, but of course I've worked so much with my body and just working out with the team. So I of course I getting stronger in all the testings, but not just specifically for the test.
Sam and I were talking earlier on in the program about holes in people's games, and where this guy needs to work on his foot speed, this guy needs to work on his recovery speed, this guy needs to work on his shot, this guy what do you think you need to work on? We're having a hard time picking apart your game, Rasmus.
It's the strength here. I think I have to get stronger and more weights on my body. And I working very hard with my shot too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one thing I said. That's maybe the only thing I can think of. So last night you had a chance to go out with your buddies. You get away from the scouts, get away from the questions.
Yep.
You hung out with all the Swedish guys. You have a good night?
Yeah,
dinner?
It was awesome. We had lots of fun.
Yeah. How many guys?
We are 10 here.
Yeah, and you would know everybody in that group?
Yeah, I've played with them in Sweden, so I know all of them.
Good for you. I'm glad you're able to go out and enjoy an 18-year-old moment. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. I mean, it's almost like you've been thrown into adulthood with everything that's been thrown at you, the highlights, all the, the World Junior stuff, the Olympics. I've been just amazed. I just want to touch on the Olympics for a sec. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. A lot of new things, like all the guys, what they eat before game, the ritual before game, and all that kind of stuff. So, it was a great experience for me.
Yeah, no, it seemed like a lot of fun. I know you got to get back. We thank you for your time. Best of luck. We'll see you in Dallas. You'll become a member of the Buffalo Sabres, and it'll look fantastic on you. Rasmus, thanks so much for stopping by. And best of luck. We'll see you later on this month.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks again.
Rasmus Dahlin, who is poised to go first overall and maybe the best defenseman ever selected first overall. I mean, it sounds so much like hyperbole when you start talking about Rasmus Dahlin. We were joking about it earlier on in the program, but really, this guy does to your blue line what Connor McDavid does to your center position.
Yeah, it's really cool, and he seems to have the personality and the mentality to not let that get to his head and to not bring him off the track of striving to be the best. And I think that's really cool. There's, man, that's such a lot thrown at him. And when I walked around with him yesterday and we were talking, and I really just wanted to get a sense of, I just want to know about Rasmus the kid.
Yeah.
All we see is we throw him into all these adult situations, and you don't ever want him to miss out on the kid thing. So one thing that happens, and I guess it happens fairly regularly in Sweden, that he's been living on his own for the last 3 years with a couple of buddies in Gothenburg. And to think that you're in a big city like that, 16 years old, you're living with a couple of buddies, wow, that's unbelievable. But as a part of that, he's learned what it's like to run a household, pay bills, feed himself, when to work out, when to not, get your rest, all of these sorts of things. So the one cool thing that came out of that in our conversations was when you get your first NHL check, what are you going to buy? He said a computer. I'm like, a computer? I said,
what?
Dude, how do you not have a computer? But I guess he's just been so focused on hockey, and he's got his tablet and his phone, his iPhone and his tablet and whatever else, and that's it. But I'm like, you don't have a computer? That I just found that odd. Maybe it's because I'm 100 years old. I don't know, but maybe I just found it a bit odd.
My kids are 8 and 6, and they have computers.
So I guess so locked in on hockey all the time that he hasn't had time to worry about a computer. Good on him.
Oh, that's hilarious. So he'll be the first player selected. He's a defenseman. As we pointed out earlier in the program, there'll be as many as 5 in the top 10, and one of those players will probably be Evan Bouchard, captain of the London Knights. Where are you at with Bouchard?
Yeah, I love him. Really cerebral game, and I think you have to watch him closely because in London he was averaging about 34 minutes per game, and as a result of that, he'd had to pace his game. And so you're not seeing him always operate at top speed, and playing the game fast. He had to conserve a little bit. He had to become more efficient.
Yep.
And so you really have to hone in on him that when there were times when he had to up his level of play that he was able to do that.
Yeah.
But he's got an unbelievable shot. He's really strong. He's an interesting guy because he has a bit of that round face, and you sit there and you look at him and you're like, wow, is he taking care of himself? Is he eating? And then you talk to the London Knights, and he tests.
Yeah.
Like he's strong as an ox. And so you're saying, oh, wow, okay, I get it now. But it's really neat to have watched him progress. I remember his first year in the league and went in and talked to Dale and Mark Hunter at the time, and they said, guys, I'm telling you right now, and the way the Hunters talk, hey boys, this guy's unbelievable, boys. Hockey sense, boys.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that has kind of been the number one thing that's come out of his game. And so, can he defend? Well, he's smart enough, and that new age shutdown guy we talked about gets back on pucks, makes a really quick decision, not defending a whole lot, but he's got size to defend whenever he has to, if you get into that half-court game, if you will. So that's not going to be an issue for him. Big shot, huge point producer this year with London. Leads the OHL, I think, was 76 points this year. So he's a really, really neat player. The one concern that people have about him is pace. To me, it's not a concern because he's had to be more efficient in his minutes.
The one interesting thing about Evan Bouchard, and I don't have the exact stats in front of me right now, but London had an interesting season, and we've seen this from the Hunters before. If they're not going to win the championship, they're building for the future, and they make no bones about it. This was a year where you saw players like Cliff Pugh and Max Jones and Robert Thomas and Sam Military all leave the London Knights organization, so they trade all their top guys. So you would think there'd be a huge drop-off by way of point production for Evan Bouchard because he doesn't have these elite-level players around him. There was a drop-off, but minimal.
Yeah.
Like, it was a hair. Like, the production continued for Evan Bouchard, even though, and they made him captain. We should point out as well.
I think that's an important piece.
Made him captain. That's a big piece of his puzzle. But the production drop-off wasn't huge. Like, it wasn't like he fell off a cliff at all.
Pretty awesome stuff. I mean, you're talking high-end guys, massive point producers in the Ontario Hockey League, and no longer as options for Bouchard. So that is a really cool element. And I think that's something when it comes to the numbers, not that it's a great analytical thing, but there is something that you can glean from the numbers, before and after those
it's
guys
legit.
leaving. Yeah.
There's something there. Let's learn more about Evan Bouchard, captain of the London Knights. Evan Bouchard, defenseman, probably top 10 in the draft this year.
He's one of the top defensemen in all of the CHL.
We've got you right around and sometimes inside the top 10. Do you follow it? Do you follow the rankings? Be honest.
Yeah, I try not to. Like the guys like Robbie and Formal, they say like just don't worry about it, play your game. But obviously you hear about it. So I can thank my teammates for helping me get up in the rankings, I guess, because they're helping me a lot, making it easy for me.
A couple of years ago, the Hunter said, you got to watch this guy. I mean, he's pro. The way he plays the game, he thinks it like a pro.
The past few years, Dylan and Rick, they've been really good to me. When I've been scratched, they were the ones who would take us out and skate, and they would work with me individually on shooting and skating, and they still do that now after every practice, before every practice. Dylan and Steady, they're always out there helping me out.
We go back to the MasterCard Memorial Cup in Red Deer and watching, the London Knights would bring along a number of players that wouldn't be playing on the squad. I mean, here's Evan Bouchard captaining U17s, and he can't make that lineup.
Yeah, a little bit frustrating, but I think it was a great learning experience for me. Really seeing the type of hockey they play and watching them, really getting to watch them that you're not playing as many games, but it was a great experience for me. I think work ethic's the main thing. You see how hard they work. Coming in early, working out, going out of practice early, shooting pucks. So I think working at it's the main thing.
He now becomes the centerpiece. So he's saying, hey man, this is awesome. I'm going to play my 35 a game.
He's on an 80-point pace. He's a power play guy. He's a puck mover.
Taking care of my body is something that coaches really get on me about. Trainers are on me about it. So I think with them being on me, it's really helping me and helping me stay consistent and healthy.
There you go. That's Evan Bouchard as we have a look at the pull-ups right now. By the way, there is a technical situation with the jump station, Sam Cosentino. I know you're looking forward to doing that after the broadcast.
That's too bad. I guess it's shut down.
Little technical situation right now with the jump station. So some of the prospects, including Joe Veleno from Drummondville of the QMJHL. So a little bit of a pause there on jump station, as you can see all the players sort of gathering around. Quick thought on Joe Veleno. Traded by St. John, the Sea Dogs, sent out to Drummondville, the trade deadline around Christmas, or the trade period rather in QMJHL at Christmas. So I think we're going to get going here. Technical problems have been solved. So this is Joe Veleno. He's the only player in the QMJHL to ever be granted exceptional status and enter the league as an underager 1 year early. Your thoughts on Joe Veleno?
A guy who's really grown on me a lot, and a guy who probably early on took the pressure of being an exceptional guy, the first one in the queue, and took it to heart, and it was challenging for him. I thought last year at the Memorial Cup really saw him take his game to a new level. He added a little bit of a physical element to it.
Yeah.
You talk to everyone in Hockey Canada, where he's played a gazillion times now. I think he's the most tenured Hockey Canada guy, if I'm not mistaken, and depending on what happens next year, we'll probably play in the World Juniors. So they love him. They say he just brings so much to the table off ice, and I think coming in at a young age is being able to thrust him into a leadership role maybe a year earlier than expected. But when it comes to his point production, he put so much on himself at the start of the year to be the only guy essentially left in St. John that I think he found it really difficult.
Yeah.
And he took too much upon himself and was too hard on himself. And quite frankly, he didn't produce to the levels he probably should have been, considering he was the best player on not a very good team. Now, you got traded over to Drummondville. There's, you have the opportunity to play with some better players and a team that was making a deep run. And all of a sudden, he settled back into being the guy who just went out and did his job. And that's when he's at his best. Just go out and do your job, Joe, because you're really good at it. Don't put too much on your plate. Don't accept too much responsibility. Have at it, and the points will come.
Really good hands. But the thing that always impresses me about Joe Veleno when I watch him is the skating.
Yeah.
Like, he is just such an effortless skater out there.
Yeah,
real nice. We saw that last year at the Memorial Cup, and he's got he won the QMJHL championship last year with St. John Sea Dogs. But to me, the skating is the hallmark of Joe Veleno.
It's nice. It's smooth. He's quick. He can get in on pucks in a hurry. He's starting to become a bigger body guy now than when he came into the league, which which is good to see. No, I really like him. And you know what, Jeff? The thing we need to talk about with Joe is the fact that, he's a center iceman. Yep. And this is a position that in this draft, especially in the top end, is void of really, really high-end centermen. Barrett Hayton and Jesperi Kotkaniemi are the two guys we've talked about. I think Veleno is probably the next guy on that list for centerman to go in the draft.
Yeah, and you're right. And we talked about that. I mean, there were times over the past couple of seasons, and again, everything changes as far as development curves go. But here's someone that was talked about, in the same breath as some of the top 5 guys for a number of years. Wait for 2018. Wait for Joe Veleno to come out. Not that he's been a disappointing prospect at all. Like, someone's getting a really good hockey player here. But as you mentioned, the only player granted exceptional status into the QMJHL, and he's one heck of a centerman in a year, to your point, where there aren't those high-end centermen at all. And we may not, we'll see where Kotkaniemi ends up, but we may not even see a centerman in the top 10.
There'll be one.
And you think it's Kotkaniemi?
Yeah, there'll be one, maybe 2, maybe with Barrett. Not too far outside of that, though, for Barrett. But you'll have one in there, for sure. For sure. So, and, you look at Joe and just constantly working on his game, real good citizen.
He's the all-in guy. We should point out that about Joe Veleno. He is the all-in guy. Like, he's everything, whenever I would talk to his former GM in St. John, he always talked about how he is, like, everything focused on hockey. Like, the entire day for Joe Veleno is focused on hockey.
Think about the exceptional guys, Jeff. Tavares.
Yep.
McDavid. Ekblad. All number 1. That's a huge bar. And then Sean Day, 3rd round, New York Rangers.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a bit of a drop-off there. I don't know if he was ever going to go number 1. And then you have Joe Veleno, who won't go number 1, but he'll go in the first round here in the top 20 for sure. But you're talking about setting the bar with those guys? My goodness, that's heady stuff that you're getting into. McDavid's might be the best player in the world.
You see Hockey Canada sort of, we use a chilling phrase again, chilling on the idea of granting exceptional status.
We're going to find out here pretty quick, because there's 2 guys that are coming up. Matthew Savoy, I believe, out west, and I got to remember his name now. I want to say it's a Smith. Collins. Give me a second to figure out. But an Ontario guy.
And here's the reason I ask. I mean, there were some reports, there were some rumors that a couple of seasons ago there would have been as many as 3 who are considering applying for exceptional status. I don't know if they did and got rejected. I don't know if they all just thought better of it, but one of them was Jack Hughes. He'll probably go first overall next season. Graham Clark, who was playing with the Marlboros, who ended up getting drafted by the Ottawa 67s.
Yeah.
And Tag Bertuzzi, who was Todd Bertuzzi's son, who ended up getting drafted by the Guelph Storm. That would have been remarkable to see 3 apply.
Yeah.
But I very much get the sense that after, Sean Day didn't go first overall in the OHL draft, after Sean Day didn't get, drafted in the first round by the NHL, ended up going later to the New York Rangers. Hockey Canada kind of has a, whoa, let's just pump the brakes a little bit here on this idea of granting exceptional status. Let's let players stay within their own peer group as long as possible.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said about that. But sometimes guys need to be challenged beyond that. And some guys are physically and mentally able to handle that. Yeah. And that's what the whole process is for, is to make that determination. So did they err on the part of Sean Day? I don't know. He's a pretty good player. When you see him at his best, I mean, there's not many that skate like him.
At that size.
Yes,
Sam.
At that size. So, and then the other part is, why is it that we have to have the expectation that if the guy's granted exceptional status that he has to be the first overall pick? I think we need to remove that stigma and then get back to figuring out exactly, let's get back to the process as opposed to worrying about the end result. Oh, well, do you project them to be the number 1 guy? Obviously, there's more that goes into that decision to make someone an exceptional player, but let's not hold them to the standard of being the first overall pick.
Yeah. We talked about Barrett Hayton. We had a comment from someone about Akil Thomas. We won't be able to watch Akil Thomas here get put through his paces, but I do want to take a little bit of time and talk about the Niagara Falls or the Niagara Ice Dogs centerman. How would you, because listen, Thomas just flat out had more points at Hayton by the end of the season. How would you compare Akil Thomas to Barrett Hayton?
Woo! Akil Thomas is a real enigma for me in this draft. And I would compare him to Ryan McLeod, who I also feel is a real enigma in this draft.
That's an interesting comparison.
And I have had tons of conversations with scouts about both players. As you know, we try and hunker down and try and figure out who's going to go in the first round and do our due diligence. And man, oh man, the conversations are almost the exact same. And I think for both guys, their individual skill sets haven't come together to make the entire package better.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But they're both unbelievable players. And I think they're both first-round guys.
Yep.
And I think they both have a lot of room to bring their game, I guess to bring it together, to put it all together.
Yeah.
Because I look at Akil and I'm like, wow, he's just like this. Wait till he gets his man strength. He's already kind of buffed and ripped, and he always plays against top guys.
Yep.
He's good skater, really good shooter. And I think maybe my expectation of him is, and maybe that's why he's such an enigma to me, that I think he has all the skill set to be able to take over a game, to literally take over a game. And I just don't know if I've seen him do enough of it. Maybe those are my expectations that are too high. And I say the same thing about Ryan McLeod. The exact same thing. I really think those two guys are of the same ilk, that people are looking at, oh my gosh, there's so many individual pieces of their skill that you like.
Yeah.
You want to see them marry that package together to give them the ability to literally take over games and be a difference maker in games. They are on occasion, those guys, both of them, no doubt. But I'd love to see them use their skills and be game breakers more consistently. Both guys.
Thomas is an interesting guy. He his father was a career minor league pro. Played briefly in the Maple Leafs organization as well, and I think pretty sure he played the majority of his hockey because he bounced around. His dad bounced around various minor league, minor pro teams. He would play in those markets, minor hockey. I think he played the bulk of it with the Junior Lightning program in Tampa, and then migrated north. Ended up playing in the GTHL, and then drafted by the Niagara Ice Dogs, who are poised to have a big season next year. By the way, they're building to in a lot of ways.
And Akil will be a big part of that.
And he'll be a big part of it. Let's learn a little bit more now about Akil Thomas of the Niagara Ice Dogs. A couple of players to watch here. Akil Thomas, who's such a wonderful story. Should probably be a first-round pick in this year's draft.
Didn't go to daycare as a kid. I went to the rink with my dad and just sat in the stands and watched his practice every day. Spent my first couple of years just eating a lot of gum and watching a lot of hockey. So I'd go on the ice before and after my dad's practices. So I had lots of ice as a kid.
Akil Thomas comes out of Brandon, Florida. Never heard of the place. Manitoba I've heard of, but not Brandon, Florida.
I was born in Toronto. Then my mom came back to Toronto so I could be born in Toronto. And then we went straight to Mississippi after where my dad was playing. And then he signed in Flint, so we went there. Then Oklahoma, then in Orlando. And then his team folded in Orlando, so we went to Jacksonville. That team folded. And then my dad retired in Jacksonville. Then we went to Orlando for my hockey to start. It's more central there. And then when I was around 11, we decided to move back to Toronto. So it's been crazy. Talking to my parents about possibly moving to Toronto for me, I thought that was pretty crazy at 11, and not too many families talk about that type of stuff. So from there, I started taking it a lot more seriously, and it's something definitely wanted to pursue because my family was sacrificing a lot for me.
Good glimpse of the future for Niagara. Jones and Akil Thomas on that top line up front. Oh boy, what a future those two have.
Jones across Thomas, he scores! Beautiful setup, Jones to Thomas!
It's a great place to play. You get a lot of fans, really nice rink, really good owners. I love my coaches, and I think I'm in a really good spot. I'm lucky to be there, to be honest.
And they're going to look at Thomas here to lean on him to be not only a guy here in the rest of this playoff series, but down the road and into the future as a potential first-round NHL pick.
Yeah, I think about it. I try not to think about it too much, but it's definitely a thought that happens in my mind. The only rankings that really matter are the rankings at the end, the results. So try not to. Well, sometimes you kind of want to. You're curious about certain stuff, but right now I'm not too really focused on that. It's kind of everything I've dreamed of. Just waking up and knowing I was going to be on the ice every day is something I really like, and I've been looking forward to it for a long time, so now that I'm here, I'm loving it.
Here's Akil Thomas, 5'11", 171 pounds, plays with the Niagara of the OHL. Sam Cosentino has him in at number 27. We'll pick up on that in a couple of seconds. We'll want to remind you our NHL Draft preview show goes June 20th, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. You can watch that on Sportsnet. Get you all set for the first round of the NHL Draft in Dallas. Have a look at your top 10 there. Sam Cosentino, Rasmus Dahlin, Andrey Sveshnikov, Philip Zadina, Brady Tkachuk, Adam Bookfist, Oliver Wahlstrom, Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Quinn Hughes, little run on defenseman there, and then Barrett Hayton rounding out your top 10. You have Akil Thomas in at number 27. What do you want to see more? Like, look at the progression for someone like Akil Thomas. What do you want to see out of him next season after he's drafted in the NHL?
Just take everything to the next level. Good point producer, does a lot of things well, responsible player. Just take it that one extra level. I want to see a guy that when I go watch him play, I project that he'll have 100 points at the end of the year.
He's got a shot. He had that kind of season this year on a really good Niagara Ice Dogs team that's poised to do even bigger things next season. Of your top 10, we talked about Noah Dobson a little bit. We've talked about pretty much everybody here, except Adam Bookfist. We've spent some time with Sveshnikov, Dahlin, certainly, Evan Bouchard. I want to talk about Bookfist, and I want to talk about Quinn Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, so these are two smallish defensemen. One's a right-hand shot, one's a left-hand shot. Hughes is the left-hand shot, and Bookfist is the right-hand shot. Where do you see the points of difference between these two, the two smallest players that we have in the top 10?
The parts about their game that are so I see Bookfist with a better shot.
Yep.
I see Hughes probably with his ability to think the game better. I see both guys as high risk, high reward defensemen. I see both guys, and the criticisms I've heard on both players are some deficiencies in the defensive zone. But I pretty close to being the same guy, really. And I just think Quinn really benefited from being able to play at the Worlds. I thought that was pretty neat that he had the opportunity to do that.
Yep.
For Boquist. He's going to be a fascinating guy because there is still a little bit of that stigma about the small guy. I mean, at least in terms of some of the things that Brian Burke, who's going to be joining us on Draft Day, has talked to us a little bit about. So they'll both be fascinating guys. I do really believe both are top 10 guys. I really believe that. But Hughes obviously comes from that big hockey background with his dad, his mom, his younger brother Jack, and Boquist, whose brother Jesper is a pick of the New Jersey Devils, also has the hockey in his blood. So they're really, really similar guys.
Yeah. Jesper Boquist selected last year.
Yep.
And Jack Hughes, who's the brother of Quentin Hughes, will be selected next season. Should I say first overall now?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say.
Pretty safe to say. Quinn Hughes at Michigan. And now, any knock on Boquist in the sense that he didn't play in the top league in Sweden? Is that a factor with Boquist?
Well, I think it is. But again, as a smaller guy, he looked pretty confident when we had him in the room there yesterday. And, he seems to feel that he's ready to rock and roll. But, yeah, I do because, we talked to John Chayka here before. You have to have the ability somehow in your scouting system and with your scouts to be able to figure that out in terms of finding the level playing field. So I can't compare what Rasmus Dahlin did playing in the SHL to what Boquist is doing in the under-20s. It's apples and oranges. So how do you find a way to level that playing field? Well, you get him in an international competition against people of his same age group, and then you sit there and say, okay, are those things translatable that if he were to play in the SHL, he'd be able to do those same things? So maybe he's just a little further behind on the path.
Right. A second ago, we just saw Benoit Olivier Gru, or as he likes to be called, Bo Gru.
Bo.
Son of legendary junior hockey coach.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Benoit Gru is a legend. But interesting when you do your research on the background of Benoit Olivier Gru, son of this great QMJHL coach who doesn't coach his son, who always says, if you have a question, go ask your coach.
Yeah.
That's the person obviously this is what he would like his players to do, and he imparts that on his son as well. There's a couple of players, we have a look at Joe Veleno. There's a couple of players from the Halifax Mooseheads, Philip Zadina, Jared McIsaac, we haven't talked about yet. And where are you at on Bo Gru? You have him in at number 26 in your top 31.
a guy who has great physicality, grit, sandpaper to his game. A guy who I think showed this year more of an offensive upside than what people expected out of him. Banged up at the end of the year, so that was challenging for him because I would have loved to have seen him participate in the under-18s.
Yep.
But he couldn't as a result of the injury he suffered in, was it Game 4 of the Charlottetown series, I believe it was, to end the season. But there's a lot to like. The size, the strength, the physical play, the work ethic, all those things are really good. Two-way game, he's responsible. He can, good forecheck guy. So all those things they're really, really good in his game. Now, this was the lottery edition. To see Bo go in the first round, he's going to be on the edge of town. Yeah. And that may change once we come out with our mock drafts. I think for me that might change a little bit.
What about Jared McIsaac? Because that's the third of the players that might go in the first round.
Oh boy, yeah.
Defenseman, raw bone, Maritimer.
Yeah, really good, cerebral, serious young man, and a guy I think who had a bit of a resurgence at the under-18s.
Yeah.
Once Halifax was eliminated, he had the opportunity to go over there, and I think he, because for me, started the year kind of on a high note. Kind of dipped a little bit, and I can remember one particular game. I was there. I think they lost 7-1 to Drummondville that game at home. Halifax did. It was on a Sunday afternoon because we had been in there to do the game Saturday, and I wanted to stick around and see Drum.
Yep.
And so, and in that game for me, he was not particularly good.
Yeah.
Turnovers, bad decisions with the puck, and I think that was he was in a stretch of going through that.
Yep.
And I was really happy for Jared to see him come back and respond and play well at the under-18s for Canada because he's such a marvelous young man. He's a young man that you pull for and you want to see do well. So, again, first-round guy, yeah, I totally believe that. Probably not as high as what we expected at the start of the year, probably not as low as where he was in the middle of the year, and somewhere in between here at the end of the season.
Andrey, I want to go through some more prospects on your list here as we have about 15 minutes left here on this program. Someone that we haven't talked about yet and probably should. He'll probably be a top 15 guy, and that's Joel Farabee.
Yeah.
And played on that great line. We had Oliver Wahlstrom on earlier. The line with Wahlstrom, Farabee, and Jack Hughes for the development program was a Picasso at times. It was so creative. Three guys that want the puck, know what to do with the puck, can play give and go. Where are you at on Joel Farabee, whom you have, again, you haven't done your mock draft yet, but in your last rankings in at number 11.
Hard worker, wiry body, really good playmaker, excellent work ethic, big fan. I love his playmaking ability, and I think that's something that teams are really starting to take note of as part of part of the skill set. He's a really good playmaker.
Yep.
And it was fun to talk to him. Challenged by a couple of older brothers, so he's always growing up having to fight for everything. Which is having to work for everything, which is a really
fight for that
really
last
cool.
bud.
Yeah, a really cool dynamic there. So I'm a huge fan. I love Joel Farabee. I think his playmaking and his work ethic combined make him a high pick.
Let's get a thought here on Brady Tkachuk. I know we talked earlier, but for those that weren't with us, some say he should go as high as 2, but is there any chance this guy gets as low as 5?
I don't think so, but that would probably be the limit for me.
Yeah.
The back end limit would probably be 5.
Plays with Boston University. London Knights have his rights in the OHL.
It was really cool, Jeff, because when he walked into the room with us in our interview yesterday, it looked like he'd been doing it for 100 years.
I know.
Yeah. So
second generation guy, of course. His brother's gone through it. His dad, of course, legend, Keith Tkachuk. Have a look at
the family is
some experience
pretty
there.
good.
If you have any questions, son, no shortage of people you can pick up the phone and call.
Pretty awesome up and down the list. Jimmy and Kevin Hayes, you think about Matthew, and then Fitzgerald, who I believe is Matthew's uncle. So really, really good hockey family there, and they're into it. Those guys they love it. They love the game. They love everything about the game. I love the sibling rivalry between Matthew and Brady. That's going to pick up some steam, especially if he ends up going before Matthew did. I think Matthew was the sixth pick. So
Calgary ran up to the podium.
And he's had an impact for him here. So that's pretty neat to see over the last 2 years. But I think Brady's going to be a very similar type of guy and have a very similar impact here early on.
Interesting. In the interview yesterday, we asked him about fighting his brother in the NHL. So that's the one thing that Bach sat us down and said, said, you will not be doing that. And I asked him if he'd seen the Primo fight before. He goes, oh, yeah, no, I saw the Primo brothers go at it.
I saw the Hunters fight.
That's right.
I saw the Sutters fight. I saw them all fight. But Mom says, no. And I have a pretty good guess that as tough as those two are, and you throw Dad into the mix, that somehow Mom will rule the roost in that decision.
When you saw him initially with BU, it was, let's say, to be generous, a challenging first half of the season. And it really, in a lot of ways, we didn't see, Brady Tkachuk do much until the World Juniors.
Yeah.
And then after that, seemed like a different player, Sam.
Yeah, I think he got back with his peer group, the guys the same age, and it got his confidence back. But playing with BU, you're going up against older, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
You're used to being the top dog everywhere you go, especially in the program, was getting tons of minutes in all high leverage situations. And next thing you know, you're playing with and against men. And yeah, you're playing a lot, but you're not playing as much as you did. And you're not always the number one option when it comes to the power play. And so you've had to scale it back a little bit. But man, oh man, at the World Juniors, he was just deadly. He was deadly. Really, really good.
Fantastic. I asked him yesterday, I said, finish this sentence, beating Canada, and he jumped on it, and he said, is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that was great.
Great answer.
What a character.
Really personable guy. Back to your list, and it's number 12, you have Ty Smith of Spokane in the Western Hockey League, a former first-round pick in the Western Hockey League draft.
Excellent skater. Really cool family background with his dad, Wayne. Unbelievable guy. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really like his game at the under-18s. He wore a captain there, which he is that type of guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't particularly like his game at the under-18s. But there's too good a body of work already in place for Ty to have that tournament have him, slip out of the conscious of the first round. So I think he's probably in there, 10 to 15 type of range for Ty Smith. Beautiful skater and has unbelievable drive to get better and be the very best. You talk to his coach, Dan Lambert in Spokane, I mean, they love him.
Yeah.
Almost to the point that they love him too much, they got to kick him out of the office. They're getting sick of him asking questions and looking at video and doing all these things. So that part, you have to love his drive and his desire to be better.
And as a young defenseman, I mean, can you pick a better coach than Dan Lambert?
The perfect marriage.
Right.
He could not have got any luckier, and that's no disrespect to Don Knockbar, who Ty was quick to point out as putting a really good basis of his game in there, and still talks to Don regularly. But in terms of personally, the type of player that Ty is going to be in the National Hockey League, it was a perfect marriage between he and Dan Lambert, and I think it was a great coincidence that really worked out in Ty's favor, because you have a player who, going back to his days in the Western Hockey League with Swift Current, Dan Lambert was an offensive dynamo. And Ty is not going to be quite like that, but there are a lot of similarities between the games of he and his coach Dan Lambert.
Any chance he slides into the first round, or the top 10 rather?
Oh man, I think he'll be right on the edge there. I mean, is someone more excited about Ty Smith than they are Adam Boquist? Because maybe he's more responsible in his own end of the ice? Maybe. Maybe.
Sticking with defensemen, here's someone who's a fascinating story, and boy did he open up with us yesterday in our interview, and that's Bodie Wild.
Wow.
And he's going to Michigan next year. That's where he's committed. Was previously committed to Harvard. Drafted by Saginaw of the OHL, and man, did he open up about his own personal story with us yesterday about leaving Montreal at the age of 12 and having a terrible time with his first billet family, getting to a great billet family after that, honey-baked mission program, now on his way to Michigan, and played at the U.S. Development Program this season. Your thoughts on the 6'2" Bodie Wild?
Well, his game is like his last name. He's wild out there. And he is a high-risk guy, but he skates it and shoots it a ton. And that family story and the adversity that I always talk about, I like when – I don't ever like the player to go through that stuff, but I like talking to a kid who has gone and overcome that stuff. And the resiliency of that young man was awesome. It got emotional in there yesterday. And, he's telling us a story and how difficult it was for him. Yet at 12 years old, he's going through that and decides to stick it out away from his family in Montreal at 13, 14, 15, and then get into the program and really find some good relationships there in the program and making a lot of good friendships, finding a new billet situation that that really served him well. Really, really cool. Really, Man, oh man, after hearing that story, I'm pulling for that guy.
No, I know.
Yeah.
You cheer for people, and Bodie Wild is one of the people that you cheer for. Asked him yesterday, what do you want people to know about you? And he said, I want people to know that I'm as cool as my name says.
Yeah, that was good. That was great.
Bodie Wild, wish him well. We'll see where he ends up in Dallas at the end of the month. Sarah Noel is someone you were on his page early this season. I remember you talking to me, say, hey, don't sleep on this Sarah Noel kid. By the end of the year, this guy's going to be halfway up the draft charts. And so he is. Great size, 6'5", 205 pounds. Late bloomer, late blossomer. Didn't really take the game seriously till later on in his teen years. But Sarah Noel, still raw-ish, but there's a lot of people that find the package that he brings real enticing. Has new school skill and has an old school throwback mentality.
Yeah, and he's tough. He's a physical specimen, that's Sarah Noel. And, of course, you got the bloodlines with his dad having played in the CFL. Had some success on the international stage with Canada on a couple of occasions. But it's interesting. The one kind of takeaway you get from Saren is that maybe a little bit of immaturity in him as well.
Sure.
And he's probably just still catching up to the hockey world because he didn't start taking it seriously until late. But we can blame Jason York, our colleague, for putting him into a position where he's being considered as a first-round guy. The shot is awesome. I think the one thing is just find consistency in his game, and that's not a problem that's different from so many players we see at this age. For Saren, though, I think it's maybe more of an issue, the consistency in his game, than some of the others that we've seen before him. The one thing I'll say about him, though, Jeff, ceiling. I love his ceiling. So, what does that mean? I mean, the guy that you see now playing Oshawa, who does so many good things, has so much room to grow in his game that projecting him as a completely different guy in the National Hockey League than what he is in Oshawa. And he's already good in Oshawa.
For sure. Fantastic prospect. Only a couple of moments left here in the program. Want to get your thoughts on a couple of more guys. And another guy that you were on early and said don't sleep on is Matthias Samuelsson, the defenseman for the United States Development Program.
I kind of compare him to Cal Foote.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I kind of see the same sort of guy. Big body, cerebral guy, good in his own zone, takes care of that first. Offensive upside that will probably develop a little later in his career. For Cal, it's happened quicker, I think, than maybe some people expected. But I think about Cal's game playing at the World Juniors. He was like as steady Eddie as they come, and I think Matthias is that same guy. What's cool to me about Matthias is Oliver Wahlstrom, who rooms with him, had so many good things to say about him. And it was almost like he was giving you a scouting report that I see big potential in this guy.
Yeah.
But as that cerebral, cool person, that's part of what you need to be able to be good in the back end, and Matthias has that.
It's always fun when you hear one kid refer to another kid as a kid.
Yeah, I know. That kid.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's the same age, 17, 18 years old.
You and I can say it. I know I can. I'm old.
Okay, a couple of moments left here in the program. What's going to be your takeaway from Buffalo this year, and what's going to be your takeaway from this draft crop in advance of the draft in Dallas?
I think really deep draft by everyone, I'm told. I love the first round. I love the intrigue. I love the fact that there's so many teams with multiple picks. And as John Chayka said, seems to be a lot more early action, a lot more early discussions. The thought that you mentioned, teams trading down. So those are the big things that I'll be taking away from this. The other thing that I'll take away from this group in particular are the amazing personal family stories and kids having to have gone through adversity in their home lives at a young age.
Yeah.
More so than I can remember in the 3 or 4 years we've been doing this now. And that day, I'm going to pay attention to about 4 or 5 of those guys and just get a feel for the gravity of the hug with the parent and how proud parent and player will be. There's 4 guys where you're like, I'm going to be just shell-shocked sitting on our desk looking and saying, boy, that is a really, really cool moment. I don't know completely, but I think I have a pretty good feel for what that means to those people.
Maybe the best one we've seen recently for that family moment and the tears and the emotion and what it means to that family and the sacrifice was Tyson Jost of the Colorado Avalanche. And I can still see the visuals in my mind, Sam, of his mom sobbing and also of his
grandfather Jim. Yeah, and the grandparents played a real special role to Tyson, because when he went to Kelowna to play I think he was playing prep school there, he lived with them. He lived with his grandparents there. And so that was really cool. Even the feature we had done on Tyson that year and how emotional, Jim was about things. That was a really, really awesome moment, and we're going to see like 4 or 5 of those coming up on the 22nd, and I'm looking forward to that.
Bodie Wilds is going to be special.
Bodie Wild, Keandre Miller.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't talked about him. You want to quick on Keandre Miller, because you've been on him for a while.
Huge ceiling. Love him. 2 years in the position. He almost reminds me of Sergachev in that you're just scratching the surface with this guy.
Right.
Love him.
All right, and that'll be it for us from the Combine here. We thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. Jeff Merrick alongside Sam Cosentino, Rod McLaughlin, our producer. We thank him for all of his efforts. And want to remind you, Stanley Cup Final on Sportsnet. Action gets underway 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Ron McLean and Hockey Central Saturday. Then it is Game 3 of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Washington Capitals. NHL Awards live from Vegas. June 20th, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, watching on Sportsnet and Sportsnet Now as well. And don't forget about the draft. That's why we're here, folks. That's why we're at the Combine.
Can't wait.
Itching to get to Dallas. June 22nd, the first round. That is first round Friday, 6:30 Eastern with our pregame program. First selection just after 7 o'clock, 3:30 Pacific. You can watch that on Sportsnet. On behalf of everybody here in Buffalo, we thank you for joining us once again from the NHL Scouting Combine. This has become one of my favorite days of the year, Sam Cousins.
Awesome. I love it.
Get to hang out with you for 3 hours and learn more about the prospects whose name we will hear called later on this month on the 22nd and 23rd in Dallas for the NHL Draft. Thanks so much for joining us on Sportsnet and Facebook Live.